Hello, I know. It's Sunday night, I know. I couldn't do a Saturday night. I'm in Manchester with my sauce. It's Sunday, 6th of July, 2025, and I've just returned from meeting my high-level source. It's even taller than me. That is 13 hours of conversation with a well-connected media source, and we're looking for news and truth about where Doctor Who is perceived by the media and people who will decide the fate of the show, and how it can be salvaged to be given, Phoenix-like, another life, another throw of the dice. So we are looking at the problem of Doctor Who tonight, and we're talking about it with media eyes, with savvy eyes, knowing how the media think about Doctor Who and what's possibly going on behind the scenes. So it's a tasty one. I know it's Sunday night. Hope you can stick with us, and you're welcome if you can. So, of course, please like and subscribe. My usual house rules. There we've got the Who puppets who have actually think they're the stars of the show. That's why you've tuned in, apparently. Um, and of course, you can get us at gmail.com, Sense the Sphere, and the Facebook page. And so, of course, it's very important because, of course, they are running their Brisbane sweatshop, aren't they? Well, you know that because, of course, they're manning the shonky chat call centre switchboard, giving you lip and abuse and dealing with any complaints with contempt and malice. Typical Who pets. So, isn't it funny? We led the world of streamers for once, exposing the explosive interview with RTD last Wednesday. It's such old news, and I noticed lots of people are starting to catch up today. Anyway, some of it is actually relevant, and I can pull into our discussion about the problem of Doctor Who. But this is not another let's have a go RTD night. It's not. We're further than that. We're moving further down the road. So, of course, I need my good friend across the pond, Divine and Dragon, Christian. Good to see you.
Howdy, howdy. Good to be here.
Yes, and of course, I'm sorry to be so the bringer of bad tidings, but of course, I suppose it's the title, The Problem with Doctor Who.
There's more than one problem associated with Doctor Who to bring it back. Doctor Who is itself, as an IP, is a wonderful, wonderful universe to be immersed in, but bringing it back properly seems to be a challenge.
It certainly does, but of course, I met Michael Herbert, who did the Malcolm Hulk biography. It was his 70th on Saturday, so happy birthday again, Michael Herbert. And he got me aside and he said, "You haven't got a source, have you?" I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "I think everybody's cynical. I understand the cynicism. So, no, I do. I'll prove it to you. Here we go." There you go.
You got a sauce there.
There you go. There's my sauce. No, the fact that I keep joking about it, nobody believes the word I say. So anyway, I have 13 hours, so I'm learning quite a lot, and I appreciate the input they've given. Anyway, the problem with Doctor Who, as I am synthesizing this, and everyone, please in the chat, tell me if I've missed something out. Me and Christian are missing something. The theme of tonight is what is the problem with Doctor Who in the eyes of the media, the people who will make the show or not us, I mean the media, and of course the general public, because you need the general public to turn back for reboot number 65, and you also need somebody in the media willing to put their platform and their money behind another relaunch of Doctor Who. So we need to identify that first. And you can see I've identified a few things there that we'll go through. If anyone has others, please join us. I've basically said perceived woke agenda, political messaging, narrative and structural issues, representation and casting controversies, production and creative direction. That might be the RTUD bit. Declining viewership and cultural relevance. But then, of course, the next part of the show is obviously how do you pitch to future producers and audiences? And that's where we'll go into various other things as well, folks. So we're not just having a go. We're moving far beyond that. Those people who've just caught up today with the interview with RTD are like, what, 4 or 5 days behind? Meanwhile, I've just been talking to people in the know, and so we can move on. So I suppose one place to start, Christian, is this. Now, this was I showed this a few days ago, and it's still relevant. Tim Spilsbury used to do the Doctor Who. He used to do the Doctor Who monthly editor, and he just said it like this: "I suspect the show will indeed come back at some point, but as of right now, nothing's commissioned, nothing's guaranteed." Everything is moving much more slowly in TV at the moment on the assumption that Disney doesn't renew before its option officially expires. That will be the point when the BBC can start to shop the show around, and that process could take a fair bit of time. It may require more than one partner just to raise the money needed. So that's just to kind of state the obvious. He got it in the neck for some reason. I suppose you shoot the messenger, don't you?
Always.
I mean, but the truth is, that's my understanding from, you know, who I've been talking to, that nothing's commissioned, nothing's even committed to. Bad Wolf technically are still in position. There's no announcement of the termination of that contract from either side. That means technically RTD's still in play, although we all reckon that's it for him. But everything basically is in a kind of limbo. And while it's in limbo, as you know, because you've been in the industry, nothing can really move forward. But they can obviously have little nudges and winks and kind of have little informal chats.
And well, it's all about finding sources of revenue. You've got to have someone willing to back it. And you've ultimately got to have a place to air it. I'm sure if somebody came out of the wings and said, "Hey, I've got $1 billion to donate to the BBC to produce some more Doctor Who," the BBC would jump on it and they'd find a way to air it in any condition for that kind of money. So you've got to get the money first. If you've got the money, then you have to have a window of time in which to air it. One of the problems is between the moment of time where contracts can be sought and money can be raised, you may have upwards of 18 to 24 months before something is produced and then aired. So that's a significant lag time. If you were to say start the process in January of 2026 or January of 2027.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be that early, no way, because I think the contracts go up till then anyway, unless somebody ends them. Gareth Morgan, it would need a total restart of anything. As everybody knows, I'm starting to warm to the idea. You almost pickle everything that's gone up to now, and it's preserved for good or bad. Joey, who was getting very excited tonight, I think he's having a tie. I've grown more convinced that the possibilities are endless for a resurrection with the right team in place. Joey, I think you're right. And you know, I chat to people, I chat around, and I really do think it's just a matter of getting the right people in the right place at the right time and with the right ears listening. And remember, I'm doing a stream soon about really the truth about the BBC. And they really hate the program. They like the money. They hate the program. They hate us. They totally misunderstand us. We're just geeks. We're not to be listened to. So yeah, there are problems there. I suppose, Christian, we should get on with the first issue as defined, and please, everybody in the thread, tell us where you think the actual problems are. Remember, the game tonight is not to have a rant about RTD per se. We've done plenty. It's to actually move almost beyond that if we can, to actually say, right, if you were actually wanting Doctor Who to come back, how are we going to get people engaged? Because we have certain problems we need to address. So what are the problems that when you sit in front of a media executive, they're going to be going, oh, they'll be glazing over. Not again. So one of them is the perceived woke agenda and the political messaging. I mean, Christian, do you see you see, I think the problems here are twofold. The audiences see that, and so the audiences have turned away from Doctor Who. So how the hell you get them back? We're going to have to think about that tonight. But then the other one is, are we in the right place with the BBC that they won't do this again?
That second one is the tough one. If you had the right team in place and the right format for Doctor Who going forward, basically one that did not prioritize agenda driven stories at the sacrifice of the overall narrative. You would ultimately be able to woo back some fans. They're going to start talking. What do you mean? It's back? It's good? It's, oh, I better check that out. And word of mouth will spread, and all of a sudden you'll see a climb in the number of views each episode receives from that point on. That does take time. You have to have the investment and assume that the first season coming back is designed about how finding a way to woo back the fans that were disenfranchised and left. See if you can woo them back, but you can only do that with quality over the course, probably, of a season. The big question is the BBC. The BBC is largely operating under the agenda-driven auspices that we're all familiar with that have tanked most entertainment today. How do you change that culture, or how do you trust that the people at the BBC won't derail another attempt just because they can't help themselves?
And this is one of the I've been educated by my source. I really have on how the BBC perceive things. The BBC as an organization, and almost producer to producer, do not understand the success of Doctor Who. Sci-fi is an embarrassment. They're all Oxbridge academics. They've all been down that same route. Sci-fi seen as low level. They are not interested. So they see us as quite a problem anyway. And the more we get vented about, canon being broken and you can't do that with the Doctor, and why don't you take it back to Genesis of the Daleks style period or Philip Hinchcliffe, they'll look at us with glazed eyes like, oh, for God's sake, what is this? I was also educated that the BBC executives who commission these things, they don't watch Doctor Who. So when we, as Doctor Who fans, have arguments about, doing this, doing that, changing this style, going back to that Andrew Cartmel master plan, whatever we say, they don't have a clue what we're talking about. So that is one hell of a problem if we're talking about, well, I think I know what we should do with Doctor Who and how we bring it back. Because, as Christian has said, has the BBC moved on? Second thing is, have the British public moved on? Will they give it another chance? Because it is seen as woke. And then the other thing is, the BBC don't know what to commission in the first place. Now, there's some really interesting stuff going on in there. I mean, Grant, you always do say bring on the Hoopettes, and I understand that. So I'll give you a tasty one. Normally I say, hey, give us your shonky chat money because I'm a right little whore. But here we go. How did that go, Grant G? Extermination number one. I think I do. And I think that one little segment tells me everything about what the real Doctor Who should be. Just more Jeopardy. It's
There you
simple.
go. It's amazing what a little bit of jeopardy, a bit of stakes does for a story in audience engagement.
Yeah. So this one is a killer, folks, and we all know what we think of the program over the last 2 seasons, but the issue is, how do we move the agenda on? What do we do with the new Doctor Who? So remember, the second half of this program is talking about that, so be ready with your notes and everything. So I do think an awful lot of people have turned away thinking it's got an agenda and we don't like the lecturing. We've showed you the surveys, we've shown you the headlines, so that's definitely happening. And then, as you know, in reference to what RTD just said the other day, and you were on that show, Christian, when he said, I've nudged it in 1% in the LGBT direction, where the other streamers are all jumping on what Doctor Who TV said, because Doctor Who TV grabbed a tiny bit when we did the whole bloody interview. But it was the element here. I find a lot of the other science fiction franchises very straight, very masculine, very testosterone, and so that's our space. Do you think where Doctor Who can fill the space? That's what other streamers have jumped on when there was a massive context, of course. And I did think at the time, and we said this, that why did he decide to pitch Doctor Who in a different place to where all the other sci-fi was, and why did the BBC allow him? And of course, Christian, the problem is because the BBC don't like sci-fi, and so they let RTD do what the hell he wanted.
No, that's a big problem. I don't know what it is with TV execs. They've always had a hard time understanding science fiction. As a general rule, science fiction, especially when you create a science fiction universe, operates with some very specific criteria and rules. If the stories are well executed and if the world is very engaging, you can create lifelong devoted fans who are attached to that property. It's one of the few genres that really allows itself to actually apply to families, from a 6 or 7 year old child hiding behind the sofa because a hand grasped the shoulder of your hero unexpectedly, to grandparents sitting down to enjoy a show because the kids are engaged. It's something that has that capacity, but it has to have rules that are adhered to. And I think if you're not a viewer who's engaged in science fiction as a venue, as a genre, but you're in the business, it's outside your wheelhouse. One of the things that you're able to enjoy that I don't really follow is your local football. You can engage partly in sports, but if I were an executive on ESPN, sports is not my wheelhouse. It's not something that I would understand how to effectively market
It,
from or
it
towards.
but it shocks me. It really does shock me. And like I said, when I've talked to my media source and they do educate me on what it's like on the inside, the BBC is enormous. The amount of executives, the amount of producers, the amount of people in little meetings all the time. And it seems that not one of them is a science fiction fan. Not one of them is giving Doctor Who a go. They just don't. They don't invest the time. Now, if I was commissioning editor of Doctor Who, I think I'd make it my job to know what were the best stories over the years so that I can actually then measure myself whether RTD and Disney are up to what I'm expecting. Because that's where it's all gone wrong. Um, but you see, the issue here is why is it so wrong to just do what Doctor Who has always been? It's always been, well, I'm not saying a straight male because he was asexual. He was a male character, so yeah, you could call it very masculine. Although I have to say, I mean, some of our classic doctors weren't what you would say very masculine. They just got on with it. And where I perceive everybody, where some of the backlash is on this woke agenda and how it's delivered is people think instead of giving us the traditional focus on themes of adventure, escapism, it's been taken away and replaced by divisive and agenda driven content. And that's been the problem. If The Devil's Cord was a good story, they might buy into it, even with Jinx Monsoon. If Space Babies had been a good story, they might have bought into the fact that it was naff. But that was the problem. So, yes, we jumped on the 1% nudge. Of course, as Hasler Scott said, wow, it went a bit more than that. Yeah, the perceived thing, we're in the wrong place. So that's one thing. That's one problem we've got. The next problem on the block, Christian, as I perceive it, and please tell us in the thread, the production and creative direction. There we need a screeching of brakes. We really do. I was told by my source that actually a lot of media insiders, I asked this question specifically, a lot of media insiders on the airing of The Star Beast knew that Doctor Who was dead. I mean, as early as that.
Well, I think it was kind of clear once they had chastised the doctor for wrong pronouns and given him that lecture. The moment they had put him in his place because he was male presenting and only a transgender human being had the capacity to see everything and solve the problem. We had the narrative had obviously co-opted really even the agency of the doctor. The doctor is supposed to be the character with the agency and the capacity to resolve a crisis. And it was taken out of his hand at the same time he was being lectured to, and at the same time the audience was being lectured to. That was a bad move.
A bad move. And so yeah, it's interesting when you hear this, because obviously I'm an outsider, so I asked. And um Star Beast, we know that Disney was out after about 4 episodes. That was clear. Dead Man, British draw a softer line between science fiction and literature than do the Americans. Hasler Scott, people like RTD go out of their way to live in an echo chamber prison, then are baffled when everyone points and laughs at how out of touch they are. Hasler Scott, remember my Disney show, The Disney Leak, which I was told and confirmed was pretty accurate. Um, the Disney feedback was trying to tell RTD that it wasn't quite working in all their data. He wasn't listening. He wasn't taking the calls. It needed Julie Gardner to intercede and to have a chat with RTD. But he was, kind of basically, I know what I'm doing, and so she would feed back to Disney that he knows what he's doing, type thing. It he wasn't in listening mode, and that's why partly the Disney deal broke down. There was a whole list of things, but one of them was that, well, remember, they had no creative control either. So of course I discussed that, and I was told it was pretty on the money. So he took us in the wrong direction. Disney were the ones who identified that there was tonal inconsistency and the narrative quality wasn't there. Peter Davison's joined in on that one. Of course, we said even how the silhouettes went didn't work, did it? But there was loads of detail from Disney about RTD reportedly confident in his creative instincts, wanting a strong episodic structure that prioritized fun and theme continuity over edgy and more sophisticated storytelling with more serialized cliffhangers. He's in the wrong place, and it's been proven to be wrong, Christian.
Well, we bring back the idea of the serialized format with 30-minute episode installments again and again. I'll give RTD this concession, and whoever would have come in had it not been RTD, it probably would have been someone following this a similar process. The hour-long standard standalone episode worked 20 years ago, but viewing habits have changed today. People will do one of two things. They'll binge watch if it's streaming, or they'll come in for shorter windows of time if they have a hard time focusing. Well, guess what? A serialized format serves both functions. You can pile up the episodes and binge if you want, or it will be good for those 25, 30-minute chunks to carry on a story longer. Plus, it's cheaper because you don't have to have as many narratives, as many worlds to craft, and it will last longer. You get more bang for your buck. It never ceases to amaze me that there's an easy solution, and the solution is to go back to the format that worked originally.
Yeah. Now, I want to cheer people up. This is not a stream to make us feel bad. We look at the problem. You know this. We look at the problems. We then resolve those problems and we move forward. And I have to say, there's still a lot of positivity from what I hear out there. There are still people keen to pitch on Doctor Who, people still keen to really go for it with Doctor Who, people with ideas for Doctor Who. There's plenty of decent Doctor Who writers out there. There's plenty of decent people with decent ideas out there. My issue is, and this is all our jobs thread, is to be contacting the BBC, but you've got to be aware that the BBC think we're all a bit dodgy. So basically, how we pitch it is not a moan, not a gripe, not a complaint, not to get at them, not to do that. We need to approach them in a different way that they're used to, just to re-educate them on what they could do with Doctor Who, and it would be so easy for them, rather than you're all terrible and defund the BBC. You're not going to it's going to be deaf ears. Ship and Shaw, we need to let it go. If it comes back, it will be run by the likes of Beth Axford or the Gallifrey Cabaret types. And the reason I said what I just said, Ship and Shaw, is I'm more positive than that. The people who are really trying to make a go of a future for Doctor Who, if that's possible, if the BBC can be re-educated to go a different way, to go slightly, then that wouldn't happen. Your fears would not happen. So it's there to be won. It's there for us to win the agenda, but the way we interact with the BBC needs to be different because they have us down as that relentless noise. We are the Conrad Clarks to them, so we need to talk to them in a different way. So we re-educate them, but we need to talk to them differently. That's what's become clear to me. Logical Leaps from Limited Illusions. Fascinating title. Doctor Who will always remain a sci-fi writer's dream. Of course. Not surprising people would jump at it, just have to wait. Yes. As Christian was saying, this is going to take years. As Tom Spilsbury said, this is going to take years. I would reckon, just it's nearly midnight here. I would reckon we're talking about by the time something possibly could be on the TV as a series, specials are different, they can do that quicker. I would be saying we're talking about 2029, 2030,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
But we can wait. I have to say, we've been patient before. We can be patient again. I, and then that we would have had a pause, and then you can hope that people coming in will have re-educated the BBC with a different idea and given something else a go. And if we can all be complicit in that, we can all be part of this solution. Anthony Parkinson, look at Jason Blum apologising to fans for getting it wrong with the Megan sequel. That's how you regain trust with the fan base. That's one of my answers, Anthony Parkinson, later about how you solve this. We're a difficult one because our fan base is so split now, thanks to certain people. But Christian, I mean, I can see what Ship and Shaw was saying because obviously that would say we're not getting to straight masculine and testosterone back. But I think that has to be, we need to recalibrate Doctor Who. And if you think of the British public first, give them what they expect Doctor Who was rather than what it has been.
Well, precisely. What it was is something that worked. What it has been recently is something that has not worked. Logic tells me when something is not viable, if it's not functional, you look at the models and you go to the model that was successful previously and say, okay, what about that model made it work? One of the things that they point out is that, okay, sci-fi is very testosterone driven. I'm gonna be candid. The lion's share of the audience that consumes science fiction properties tends to be male. It's male centric. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. That's the nature demographically of the audience that it caters to. And that audience has certain expectations in the types of characters they follow and in the types of stories that are told. You have to go back to that tone, you have to go back to that format, and you have to respond to the demographic that has always embraced that kind of narrative. It's not rocket science, even if it is science fiction.
Hazlitt Scott is saying, would the BBC be like this if they had to attract advertising? Hazlitt Scott, they're going to have to come to the same decision. I have had such fascinating talks that basically the BBC, etc., they know the game's up. They're up against Netflix and Amazon and massive streamers. They can't survive. And neither can they expect to just do their diet of whatever, expecting us to pay a license fee when actually, in a way, cheaper would be for us to get Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all the rest of it, subscriptions or Disney subscriptions. So basically, the game is changing, and they'll be slow to it, but they are learning. It does mean, when I said 2029, 2030, that there may be a problem in commissioning Doctor Who, though, because who would the commissioning editor be to commission a series with problems when they want guaranteed certs, when they're going into a flux period of who are there, who's paying for their platform. They want home bankers, they want successors, and that's where, unfortunately, RTD's driven us into a bit of a cul-de-sac. And so I think this is going to take a fair bit of time. Plus, commissioning editors don't hang around. They get sacked or they get moved on. So basically, we're in a sticky wicket here in so many different ways. And that's where we are. So I can see your point, Hasler Scott, but my God, it's a mess. And And yeah, the creative control, breaking the fourth wall. I mean, you could go on. I mean, you know, where he took it, and it was clear in my surveys that people didn't like the direction RTD took it in. So his name is up. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, Now the other big thing, obviously. Oh, sorry. Just before I finish on the creative direction problem, was so many people have said it was Disney, the Disneyfication of Doctor Who. People were very concerned about it becoming Americanized and everything. It did look different because of the high budget, and so it kind of didn't look like Doctor Who used to look like. But that had nothing to do with Disney per se saying anything. And my understanding all the way through, and it's just been confirmed again and again and again, this is all on RTD and the lack of management from the BBC. It's less so on Disney. That's why Disney's out. They did not get the Doctor Who they wanted.
Well, I think they trusted, and I maybe if I had been at Disney, I would have made the same mistake and assume, hey, this is the guy who brought it back from the dead 20 years ago. Surely whatever he generates will be a winner. And so I'm not going to have a little clause in the contract that stipulates that they must listen to my input. I'm going to trust him. And then they saw what they had and they realized it's too late to change the nature of the contract. He's got what he wants, which is $100 million to play with, and the complete control and complete dominance. So now all Disney can do is pass on suggestions. Part of this goes back to the BBC. The BBC needed to assert guardrails to prevent RTD from going over the edge. They didn't. But they didn't understand the property in the first place, and they probably were trusting him for the same reason Disney did. By the time everyone was aware this was a no win, that ship had sailed.
The BBC thought they were saved by RTD. He saved it the first time when they didn't understand it the first time. They just found somebody who said he understood it and seemed to bring the ratings in. So bye bye. They were the same with JNT. Couldn't give a damn. I'm not interested in this concept. They've never found it sexy. They've never found it interesting. Um, Bless her, Lorraine Heggessy was the one who did believe in it. Rose Kirby. Doesn't the BBC know what science fiction is? It is the word fiction to go through time and space. Anything could happen. Why not go in that direction? And the answer of Rose Kirby is because you're dealing with TV executives, Oxbridge trained, who have no interest in the genre. They don't understand the genre as we do. And the more we tell them that they don't know it, and the more their heroes go on about science fiction, the more we confirm their prejudices. We've got a hell of a problem here. A hell of a problem. So RTD might be exiting, but who will replace? And we need them to be the ones who have a true voice about Doctor Who and understand the true spirit of Doctor Who. And this is the problem, because who will commission this? Who will risk commissioning this? And do they understand what Doctor Who is and how where to get it back? We've got a generation now, haven't we, Christian, where since 2005, there's 20 years. Those TV executives are only referring to New Who. They're not referring to Classic Who. And so for us to say, oh, what about Genesis? What about the classics? This is what Doctor Who was. They're going, it never was in my lifetime, never was in my memory space. This is the problem we're facing. That's what's been made really clear to me by my source. And while I say source, I know we have fun. So I want to give you another laugh. Oh, I've been the source manipulator. There you go. Yes, our saucy play, thanks to Garbage, of course. The Keeper of Traken, source manipulator.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, it's a can of worms, but it's been made clear to me that you need to know the can of worms. You need to know the problem with Doctor Who before we can start to resolve it. I'm going to be very clear on that tonight, everybody, because I'm obviously a Doctor Who fan like you are, and we're so ensconced in it, we just don't know why people don't get it. There's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. So, the other thing is decline in viewership. You go and talk to the BBC today. I know there are leaks that there's maybe one streamer in prime position, and I'm hoping to hear more about that later, and I can confirm or deny or whatever. But basically, at the moment, yeah, that's that. We'll just stick with the leak. And other people are just trying to see if there's a vacuum there to try and fill with their ideas. But the if there's decline in viewership, Christian, that's a good one, isn't it? Hello, BBC. Can you give it another go? And they're going, what? The cultural relevance thing is why you should give it a go. But the trouble is, it's been used as a platform because it's got cultural relevance. So it's become a mess.
Exactly. The two elements really go together. Something that is culturally relevant is going to have climbing viewership. Something about the program touches the zeitgeist of the generation. It responds to what the population at large wants to see, and everyone's able to get on board. It becomes must see television, must see viewing. But that comes with quality content and not agenda driven storytelling. It all comes back to agenda driven storytelling. If the agenda comes first, the story comes second, the IP suffers, the viewers walk away, and it no longer is culturally relevant. And the longer this goes on, the more people don't grow up watching it. You
Yep.
grew up watching Doctor Who, so did I. It was something everyone was engaged in. But now we've got 10 years, a block, a decade. Young people who went from 5 to 15 and probably will get to 20 without any quality Doctor Who being aired for them to sink their teeth into and to become attached to. And part of the reason you and I are attached to it is because we grew up with it.
And
Fans are generated over generations.
but the version we grew up with is not the version the executives grew up with, and it's not the version that a lot of the writers who are going to be doing the new. It's kind of moved on in that way, and I think it may be lost in that respect regarding the version we might see. Hasler Scott. The thing with Jaguar and Bud Light is that the marketing people behind those campaigns were taught in elite colleges. Oh, something similar there. That they think that's how you do it. Those same colleges educated TV executives. Spot on, Hasler Scott. That's what I've been educated on. I didn't go to Oxbridge and I like sci-fi. Maybe I didn't go to Oxbridge partly because I liked sci-fi, so they thought I was thick as. I was obviously talking gobbledygook to them. Well, they can stuff their bloody Oxbridge. Honestly. With their stupid
Well,
bloody
I would say it goes even further than Oxbridge. I'm going to go all the way back to secondary education. You know that I teach creative writing. And one of the problems that I have in finding writers for my program is that when it comes to the boys have learned over the years, oh, that's a girl's thing. It's not for me. And those students that are recognized preferentially in the educational forum where there's a competition of some kind typically are the young ladies. And what this does is it shifts the dynamic because guess what? Science fiction is largely male dominated, but you are not allowing male writers to rise to the occasion and learn what it means to be a good writer in that format. So you've got a lot of people going through education now who should be able to write, and they aren't there.
So we've got unexpected fire here saying, by the way, I'm watching the Sensorites. Well, of course you would. It's the Sense Sphere. I mean, hello, names are apparently for the first time. Was this a lost episode? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was shown at the time in '64. It's never been lost in that respect. But anyway, to enjoy. I think the first two episodes are the best. I think it's great when John Daly's at the window trying to get in. um, but the issue with the decline in viewership um, is it's who's watching. In the end, the demographics were saying in nearly every demographic there were fallen viewers, but the hardy ones were really us. And we have stuck around. I know a lot have departed, but a lot of us stuck around to try and give it a go, although we've really hated it. And this is a problem that the younger ones have really already absented it. They think it's too silly, too immature. That's what Disney found out. Um, so you've lost the younger ones who wanted faster paced streaming content. They'd prefer things to be just binge watched. They'd prefer things available in a different way. So the whole thing is in a bit of a mess regarding this. Pikehead has an interesting point. Playing devil's advocate, maybe 60 years is too long for any show to run. Maybe it's completely run its course. It's a very interesting point because it's never happened in television history before. No science fiction show has gone this long. Yes, with one or two breaks. And it is an argument we have to. This is where Disney. This is where fans, I think, divide again. And I'm moving to the other, I'm bridging the divide a bit to go into the other side now with the hard reboot because I am starting to think that you just have to end it. Start again with no real reference to the earlier Doctors in that way. We've got to just let it go. Continue with a new version of Doctor Who. I mean, if you really think about this, folks, I want you all to think about this. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm not wrong. I'm just saying, why are we doing Doctor Who this way? Because it's now starting to really creak at the seams, and maybe it's gone on for too long in its linear format. So what we need to do is look at Star Trek. It keeps stopping and starting, but when it comes back, it focuses on Voyager, or it focuses on the next generation, or it focuses on going a different way with a different style, or a different narrative arc. And then when it ends, it ends. And then you bring it back again, but in a different format. Maybe that's what Doctor Who needs to do. A dark series with an arc. Then do. I'm just putting it out there, folks, because I think we need to think out of the box. Because I think Pikehead, you're right. This linear process has maybe exhausted itself, not of ideas, but the fact that we're trying to explain Timeless Children and that is Gallifrey destroyed and that it's bogging us down. I call it Japanese knotweed. It's just bogging us down. And I think we need to let it go. We need to let it phoenix light rise again, and we need to let Doctor Who fly with the ideas but without the canon. And just I don't know. It's a hell of a one. I'm going to get the thread kicking off either way, but we've got to entertain the thought.
Well, I think the idea of a reboot is viable at this stage of the game. You know, we've talked about what it would take to fix narratively the problems that were generated. And we already know that as a general rule, studios are loath to sacrifice product that they have created, that they had sanctioned originally. So the BBC is not going to willingly say, oh, yes, we're going to overwrite and omit everything going back to 2017. They aren't going to be well disposed to that, but trying to fix a decade of problems is virtually impossible. So the only solution at that point is to start fresh. Now, it's possible 10 years down the road, you can have a doctor who has a tertiary experience dimensionally in time and space and taps shoulders with someone from the original universe, and they say, oh, there's a connection. But it's one episode, the story's done, and it's still a separate universe. You have to make sure that the new universe stands on its own and doesn't rely
Yeah,
on the previous problem.
yeah, why can't we just have, I mean, those who are opposing what I'm just throwing out there, why can't we just have a Doctor Who series with the Doctor and the TARDIS and all the usual stuff, but no reference back? No, I mean, I'm not saying the Daleks can't be in it, but it's not the first place I'm going to start because you're going back over again. I mean, try and go forward with new ideas, new villains, new characters. Go that way. And what I'm really thinking is important not to do is to kind of cross other doctors or ever say which doctor number this is. Just let us enjoy this new doctor. in their adventures in space and time and real escapist adventures, get away from Earth, but don't make it linear. And if one day it's so successful that we have to nail it down and say this is Doctor number 82, you can go for it if you want, but that's for another day. Let's actually establish the Doctor from scratch. Just do it. I think that's so important to do. Gareth Morgan, I think it's gone on far too long. That's your opinion. I know, yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Hasler Scott, though, Doctor Who could go 100 years easily. It's that iconic and that great of a concept. I agree with you. I agree with both of you. But I think the linear thing isn't necessary anymore.
I tend to agree with that. For me, I like the linear continuity because it's like a skeleton that you're able to add flesh and clothes to. But I can see where it becomes a narrative nightmare if you have so much history that any incoming writers have to be aware of all of it. Imagine, if you will, 200 years from now, Doctor Who has been running every day for 200 years, and a new writer comes in and they say, "Oh, you want to write for Doctor Who? Good. You've got 200 years of homework to do before we'll let you sit down and
Uh,
write." You can't do that.
nah.
At some point, you have to draw a line and say, "We're starting fresh." We
And,
know what
and,
the format is, we know what the character is,
and
we know
look,
stories.
the BBC, in all their naivety and stupidity and all the rest of it, those facts there are the facts there. The truth is, RTD, yes, he did their woke messaging. Yes, he did this. Yes, he did that. He also brought back Sutek. I know. Just go with me. The name was on the tin. He brought back Omega. He brought back the Rani. He brought back the Toy Maker. He brought back the David Tennant Doctor. He brought back Donna Noble. I mean, he brought back Unit. Oh, he really tapped into Doctor Who canon. Go with it, and we lost 16.5 viewers overnight percent wise. We lost 32% over the 2 years on 7 days, and we lost 14% of the audience on consolidated. Those are the facts that the BBC are going. So when you did stick with canon, folks, the viewers didn't like it. So I don't know if the linear process, because he really did make it linear and episodic and all linked up and mushed together. Maybe that's just too much now. And we've got to think out the box, folks. It's not about us, it's about the greater project. John Famlaw here. Nonsense. The show's eternal. The real problem is apparently you can't pay the actors to have actual seasons. Every other TV show has many regular actors in a season. Now I'm just trying to pick up where you were because you had another point and I wanted to bring that one in as well. And as you say, The Simpsons is still going, so they do it. It's very episodic in a different way, I know. There is no effective canon, he says. It takes an amazing amount of effort to bring back old characters. Let's try new ones then. Let's try new ones.
Well, I would just add 2 cents to that. Let's say you wanted to bring back Sutek. The way Sutek was brought back wasn't viable because of the way he was introduced, the form he took, and what it did to the overarching narrative. If you bring back another character, you still have to bring it back canonically in tune with what they were and in a way that doesn't undercut the characters you've already established. And it has to be relevant to the story. The biggest example I can think of is the Ronnie. They did a disservice to that character, did
Yeah.
not bring back the Ronnie as it should have been, and they didn't need to bring in Omega at that point. They could have done something entirely different and focused on the Ronnie as a critical antagonist, and they
Now
threw it away.
I take the point from a lot of people saying, well, it wasn't really Omega, it wasn't really the Rani, it wasn't really any of these people. It was a reinvention of them, done on the cheap and with no explanation. Yep, all that is true. But the point is, why did they even bother going there? Rather than just reinventing a brand new, decent, character. John Famlaw, it's not complicated at all. It's an idiot in a police box, time machine, maybe with a sonic screwdriver and a companion. But that's my point, John. We don't need to. If it's linear, come on, you've got to be honest with me here. Go with it, John. If we reboot Doctor Who for the umpteenth time, if the BBC decide to give it another shot, we've got to make this work. We've got to land this. And we're talking about this will be Doctor number 16. It already sounds stupid. I really do. I think the number thing is a problem for us, just because can you imagine when we get to Doctor 22? I just think it just starts to weaken and diminish the whole idea than having just the Doctor and we don't know what number they are, and neither should we know, because it's about the character and the story, not the bloody number. And so I agree with you, but if you continue to do this linear effect, we need to see the regeneration finish, and we need to see who he turns into. Oh, that means we're linked to Flux. That means we're linked to the Fugitive Doctor. That means we're linked to all that stuff. And you know, I'm sorry, but you do know that a future producer and a future showrunner and a future writer will be tempted to go back. No, let's reboot, get on with it, with the police box, with the screwdriver if you want, maybe with a companion, definitely with the doctor, and get on with it. Come on, it's about time we stop leaning on all the history. It is about time it stood on its own 2 feet. Not lazy writing. And I really do think that's important. Now, Logical Leaps seems to be saying, go for it, Brendan. It's only my viewpoint, but I'll obviously kind of put it out there tonight. Argue with us. Let's have a debate. Ignore, move on. Just bring back the older stuff for anniversaries. I'm agreeing with Brendan here. Do you know what, Logical Leaps? My understanding from talking to... Oops, I might have to say that word. Shall I not say the word and just do this? Yeah. From having my chat with a little bottle. I'm sad. I'm in the corner. We're gonna make something about this and take the make. Just me with a sauce bottle in the corner, just talking to myself. No, my understanding is this: that actually Disney thought that we're getting a hard reboot. They
Well,
didn't.
they did.
Sorry. They didn't expect the meta crisis. They didn't expect the 14th Doctor. They didn't expect all that. So basically, they thought we were hard rebooting.
They did. If you recall, in some of the interviews, he was talking about leaning into fantasy. He's going to be starting fresh. So a lot of his verbiage lent itself to the idea that this was going to be a new start entirely. And certainly on a tonal level and on the characteristic interpretation of the Doctor himself, yeah, it really was kind of kind of a new format for the show. But it bottom line is it was still indelibly linked to the classic series and even to New Who. If you're bringing back David Tennant, if you're bringing back Donna Noble now, if you're bringing back Rose, if you're bringing back Sutek, if you're bringing back the Ronnie, if you're bringing back Omega, this is not a reboot. This is a continuation.
Yeah, and it's a lazy continuation. Now, over the oversay. By the way, I'm trying to pick out people's comments in the thread. A faster way is if you can do a super chat. It doesn't have to be much, but basically, I notice it. It's very hard at the moment because we've grown in popularity, which is a lovely thing. I've realised that the curse of that is I can't see everybody's comments, and I'm trying my best. Over the overseer, Brendan, do you think the BBC owe us an explanation as to what's happening? I find it mad that they've been silent since the Billy reveal. Well, there are a few versions I'm hearing because, of course, there's talks and there's non-talks. there's legal silence. Silence is good in one way, which means we've got a problem with the contract, which is we don't want them making any more, but we've paid them for a few more years yet. So basically, if somebody's under contract, you can't break the contract unless you want to buy it out. So basically, hence the silence. The silence is, oops, We thought this was going to be really good and go for years and years and years. So we give them a long contract and we don't like it and Disney don't like it. And oops, it's a little bit like after the TV movie and Fox wanted out. And the BBC could only go silent and try and fish around and try and get somebody else to take the hook. That's where we are over the overseer. But there are talks. It's just that they all have to be very unofficial. And if they're unofficial, they certainly can't be formalized and they certainly can't be public. So there is positivity and optimism. There always is about Doctor Who, really. The trouble is, all the things I've said in this earlier part of the stream and the fact that it's complicated. And complicated means time, and time means different commissioning editors, and means we move into renewal of BBC Charter or not, and we get into the mess of what we're up against in 5 years. 5 years! How much will the TV landscape have changed in 5 years? So we're talking about what we want done with Doctor Who now, but we're not talking about what's going to happen in 5 years with TV. We might be out of date. It's a hard one. We're trying to pin down a moving tectonic plate to make it fit what we want. Very complicated. Much easier for the BBC to just come up with a brand new show, knowing what the moving tectonic plates are. Remember, Disney said Doctor Who looks too niche. The audience think it's too niche. RTD's made it too niche. It's isolated modern audiences. How the hell do we get them back? We've made the job a lot harder. And there's the evidence. You can see halfway down. The prevailing sentiment inside Disney Plus was that the show had become a hard sell and was more niche than they expected. Even despite the strong brand recognition and the critical goodwill about it. So there you go. And I've got so much evidence, it just gets ridiculous. So basically, folks, it is a massively complicated one. And when I find things are complicated, do you know what, Christian? I need to realise what Doctor Who was and just cheer myself up. So let's do it. Yeah. You just have to hear a bit of Tomb of the Cybermen and you think, I know, come on, it shouldn't be hard. Neville, I have a sort of love-hate relationship with Doctor Who. Sometimes it frustrates me that it's all the BBC can do. There are times I'd like to see that money spent on another sci-fi series. Yeah, I think I'll just say yes, Christine, because sometimes I'm thinking, I'm one of those, I like to see what people do with something first. So, you know, like you're thinking, look, since BBC's in real flux, try something else and let Doctor Who hold back for a moment while everything settles. I feel as though if we let Doctor Who go too fast again, we're in the middle of more flux. I don't know.
No, I tend to agree. We've got 5 years. We know probably we're not going to get anything from Doctor Who, episodic, serialized, or other, for 5 years, barring a special or two that they may cobble together. Wouldn't it be nice if they invested the money in another sci-fi property, maybe one that would teach a team how to put together a property that appeals broadly to people? And if that team knows how to make that work, maybe that would be a similar team capable of tapping for a rebooted Doctor Who because they proved themselves in another show.
So many people, it's a fascinating one. I mean, I've got, you know me, I'm very prepared, but equally, it's about what you think, and it is that kind of topic, isn't it? So, Jack, good Doctor Who can be done. I thought Loki did a better job at the genre than Doctor Who has in recent times. There's an example. An Unexpected Fire. The greatest crime with Irani is that they cast two actresses who were good for the role and did absolutely nothing with them. Well, yeah, I mean, you could say with the Toymaker as well. You could say with so many things. You could say with Rogue. I mean, Problematic is the word in how they've presented all this. Peter
Hmm.
Venkman, hello. And thank you. You always repost my streams. Thank you. This is a result of RTD doing nothing more than his version of what he thought he watched as a kid, and he wanted to make the Doctor become. Um, he comes up with some very funny ideas. He's always had that Sutek idea. Well, have you really? I doubt that very much. John Fanblaw, you do have good points. Thanks. I argue it's more about execution. Audiences want characters they can talk about with arcs, and you make a very good point about Game of Thrones. I've actually made the argument myself, actually, John, that Game of Thrones does have that episodic and that arc, and it's obviously very successful, and it has established its world building, but it's done it in a clever way that actually is, in a way, less expensive in the long run. What RTD has done is he's splundered the budget because every week has to be a brand new world, a brand new cast. No. And actually, the fact that every finale has to be in unit headquarters is a little bit cheap but boring. It's just the fact that we could have, if you had clever stories, 2 or 3 parts, build that world like a mini Game of Thrones. Well, Game of Thrones, you know what I mean. We could just have Winterfell and you build a world there and then you do another one. So basically, the Doctor Who can be afforded and you can have beautiful sets, great cast, subplots, and we carry on that, because the way Doctor Who's being made now, if we did a version of Talons of Wen Cheyenne, you wouldn't have time for Jago and Lightfoot. I mean, it's what's the point? What is the point? You're just not getting Doctor Who as you'd expect. John, I think modern audiences want lots of characters with interesting points of view. They can sometimes be wrong, sometimes right, but they have a point, something interesting. I want lots of characters, and that's kind of what I'm just saying regarding the Game of Thrones analogy. What say you, Christian?
I think that's not a bad idea. Um, we've talked about needing to have a team sit down and crystallize what the Doctor Who universe consists of. What if, for example, just as an idea, spitballing here, someone decided to do a series that was set on Gallifrey? On high, you've got the Time Lords and their entourage, but it's something that focuses on the people and the culture of that world. Remember, this is not related to Doctor Who as we know it right now. This is something entirely different, but it helps set that world up. And if you wanted something closer to a Game of Thrones format, you could craft something like that. And all of a sudden, there are threads that lead to and lead people to understand how the Time Lords actually did come into existence and how that culture operates. If someone wants to tap into that later on with a rebooted Doctor Who, guess what? You've now set the stage. Not only have you set the stage, you've set the rules of that culture, which means it would be 10 times harder for a future producer and writer to come back and screw it up because you've established it and it's now on the screen.
Now, Adam Moth says Doctor Who needs to be taken over by an independent team who understand the basic premise of a madman in a box who saves people. Adam Moth, if you really think about it, the madman in a box is a new Who concept. And this is look, and look, if you are into that, that's fine, that's fine. But what I'm saying is this is the issue that's going on regarding what fandom is expecting or what the British public are expecting, which is which version of Doctor Who are we talking about? The madman in the box a la Matt Smith, who in some ways I love the Matt Smith iteration, but there were still elements where I'm thinking Stephen Moffat was still trying to make it, the Fez, the Dickie Bow and everything. I don't know if we did Tom Baker really make that much of the scarf, really, or was it just it was noticeable that he had a scarf? I know there were some episodes where he used it, Robots of Death and that hat and that, but I don't know. So we've got the madman in a box, and may I say something, Ada? And it's not about you; it's about this, the way they've twisted science fiction, as in RTD has, and Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall. They are bored with science fiction and they make it more fantastical, magical, timey-wimey, simplistic, patronizing. but they don't give you Christopher H. Bidmead, Jerry Davis, and Kit Pedler. They don't give you that science fiction, and I think it's because they're lacking. So I'm not. I think I can't win the argument now and say you need to get rid of all the timey-wimey stuff, but let's have a balance in a series. But where's the Christopher H. Bidmead stuff? Where's the E-Space? Where's the Logopolis stuff? Where's the Cybermen concept with Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis? Where's that element? We can't have the Cybermen now. RTD's decided that's not allowed. Thank God he's hopefully going. So, Adam Moth, when you say Madman in a Box, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because I always thought he was a wanderer in the fourth dimension. I thought he was a cosmic hobo. I didn't think he was a madman. And that was me and John were talking about this today, John Yulden. We the master wasn't a madman. I'll say it for John Yulden now. The master should be that refined, almost gentleman. He tricks you, hypnotizes you, then he boots you in. You know, but there's something else there. He's more complex. This madness thing. Who is obsessed with this madness thing? I think it simplifies it, Christian.
It does. And I've never been fond of the Madman in a Box moniker to begin with, because Madman assumes that he's unbalanced. He's got to be one of the most self controlled individuals, given his experience and knowledge of anyone that we know, in order to accomplish what he does. He can be eccentric. That's not the same thing as a madman.
Now, one of the other reasons that we're going to get to the resolutions, although we're throwing in a few the way, I'm enjoying this, and hopefully you are as well. Representation and casting controversies. Well, this is kind of just saying it as it is. This may be a short one. Ezra, I'm putting in your point. We seem to think alike. John, I agree. There's a hilarious shot where Tom Baker pulled the scarf through the TARDIS door. He did use it in bits, of course he did. I think he tripped somebody up once in one of the stories. It's allowed. No shonky chats yet tonight, everybody. My God, it's obviously Sunday night. It's a day of rest for the wallet. But
That's right.
obviously the puppets are working hard. I'm flogging them. Brisbane sweatshop. No union. Oh, no. Oh, bless him. Who cares? So we've got the casting controversies and the representation thing. I will just list these, Christian. The Billy Piper moment was just a hope to interest people in a new negotiation. It was a stunt. We all saw it as a stunt. The stunt then diminishes the program even more. It was an unwise decision. It was a sign of desperation.
Well, it was the same thing as bringing back Tennant after Whitaker's run. The audience is not stupid. They recognize stunt casting when they see it.
Yeah. So that's where it is. People say look closely at her. The makeup's in her hair. It's been done very quickly. It doesn't attach to his body very well. It's just done very rushed. It's a last minute decision. It's poor. Anyway, that was last minute. That's RTD as he's leaving the door, trying to bail out the program because he knows he's tanked it. But I have to say, he might have said in that discussion on Your Manchester, I have no idea why Billy Piper's in it. Wow, we've had 2 years of wonderful duty. I've been drilled by Tougher Than You, so I'm not giving away what Billy Piper's doing. You know for a fact they haven't thought it through. You know for a fact he probably will have no say unless they ask him back for a special. In other words, they are throwing shit at the screen and they're hoping something sticks.
That's exactly it.
And that is an insult. That is an insult to Doctor Who fans. And that's an insult to every Doctor Who writer and producer from the past. That they've got to the point after people who've crafted it, Barry Letts and Terence Dicks sitting down and thinking of how do we sell this time thing in Day of the Daleks, and they come up with a concept of the Blinovitch limitation effect. It undermines everybody else's serious intent and serious execution of this program in the past to go way above its status in the BBC, to fight against the tide of what people were expecting, and to make this program that sometimes got shoddy ratings, not shoddy ratings, shoddy scheduling and shoddy budgeting, to excel. And it's undermining all that by just splundering something at the screen and saying, here, have Billy Piper, see if you're interested. Utter laziness. Nothing against poor Billy Piper. She's trying to help out her friends. But honestly, it was such an insult to do that. It just showed you they were going, I don't know what else we can do. Well, maybe stop.
Precisely.
You know, what's that phrase? When it's all going wrong, just stop. Stop doing it.
If you're digging and you find yourself
Yeah.
in a hole, the rule is stop digging.
That's it. Stop digging, because this hole is getting big. So, Dondo, this stunt was as pathetic as Gatwa's casting in the first place. Well, that's my other point. Don't worry, it's there. You know that. Why did he leave? The rumours are he found it. I mean, he said it was bad for his knees. I don't know what sort of joke that was, but you know, he's 32. He's going to Hollywood. He was dancing in the Barbie movie, so I'm not too sure about his knees at all. And then straight after he stops being Doctor Who, he was doing those dance classes on TikTok. So I'm not too sure about that. I just think his it's well known, and I had it confirmed by my that blankety blank that basically he has a whole team of agents who advise him, and basically get out of Doctor Who was the issue. So, John Yulden, very nice of you. Check out his Stargate tonight. He's just done 2 episodes. Watch along. I'm hearing because of Brendan, we have a sauce shortage here in the south. Yeah, it's all been wrecked. Thank you for that. I'll have to give you a saucy one, won't I? Let's do that saucy one again. Let's do me. That's a lot of sauce. Hey, I've had 13 hours of sauce. That's a lot of sauce, you know.
That's a lot of sauce.
That's a lot of sauce and a lovely chat, I have to say. In the end, it was a lovely chat. Zach, RTD2 didn't think through Ruby's story either. Or you guess, he didn't think through much, did he? He thought he's got much lazier. He thinks in kind of visuals. He thinks that scene, and that'll kind of do it. That, the Mrs. Flood concept he saw, but he didn't see through properly. He'd bailed himself out before with the Bernard Cribbins 4 knocks, but he's not as talented as he was. He's actually got worse. Narrative and structural issues. Now, this is a big one, folks, and then we basically from then start coming up with our solutions. So I hope you've all got your bits of paper ready. I feel as I'm doing swap shop. Sorry, British reference. Narrative and structural issues. So, where do we start, Christian? I think the problem that Doctor Who has is knowing that the BBC are lazy and they don't understand, and we've now got an audience that is trained in what they think Doctor Who is, and writers. Everybody refers to New Who, which is basically mostly 1-episode stories in a flimsy, crappy arc. That's
it.
That's dead in the water to me.
Well, it won't work anymore. Partly because they don't have the quality writers they need in order to make something like that work. But I would say partly because this type of writing requires more intelligent planning and actually takes more money because you've got to recreate a brand spanking new world for each standalone episode. That's why I keep wanting to go back to serials.
Yeah. So I mean, I've listed these narrative and structural issues. The episodes, it doesn't work. It doesn't land with the modern way people want it now. And our very good friend Peter Davison, in I've done 2 streams on him recently, but Peter Davison said the storytelling seems to be secondary to spectacle. Spectacle effects seems to be prominent, which is really showing off that you're spending a budget, but you haven't really thought out the script. It's called laziness.
Yeah.
And Peter Davison is calling it out, and you know he has, and we've raised that on our channel. So basically, even people like Peter Davison are saying this, and Disney. Inconsistent storytelling, narrative gaps as major flaws, prioritizing special effects over coherent storytelling, resulting in huge narrative gaps, regressive storytelling, obsessively telling old plot points. Are we destroying Gallifrey again? Donna's memories, meta-crisis, but not much fresh innovation. Remember, I started this stream by giving the revelation that a lot of media insiders thought Doctor Who was dead after seeing Starbeast. Now, Starbeast, for good or bad, was from the comic strip. It wasn't new. Wild Blue Yonder was the Wild Blue Chasm of Nout. Yeah, I mean, the giggle basically was an old character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Goblin King was just hocus pocus, kind of whatever. And I could go on. But the point is, we weren't innovating, we were doing regressive storytelling. That is one of the big problems. What do you reckon, folks?
Well, I think that's exactly the issue. At exactly the moment when the show needed to go forward, RTD went backwards.
And look at Zach. I'm confused about Gallifrey. Does it exist or not at the moment? Do you know what? There was a moment in the late 70s, early 80s when people who didn't really watch Doctor Who, if there was a quiz question on telly, they might actually guess Doctor Who was from Gallifrey. Though it was Time Lord, Gallifrey, Police Box, Sonic Screwdriver, K9, Daleks. A general public member who doesn't watch Doctor Who would be able to mention those things. But you're right, Zach. They've faffed around so much because some of us fans have allowed that linear thing to continue to bog Doctor Who down to the point where one series Gallifrey is destroyed, one series Gallifrey is lost, one series Gallifrey is found again, one series Gallifrey is shrunk. It's getting tedious, boring, complex, stupid.
Well, I would say let's assume that each new chapter dealing with Gallifrey was handled intelligently. That is, I will give the conceit that by destroying Gallifrey, you had something for Chris Eccleston's Doctor to play off of emotionally. And that set up a wonderful resolution at the end of Tennant's run. And when they did bring Gallifrey back, okay, you've destroyed it once, you've now brought it back. You can't destroy it again. That is forbidden. That is not a plot line that you can return to. If you return to Gallifrey in any way, shape, or form in the future, okay, you've done a story with Gallifrey, but you can't destroy it again. That's already been done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the problems. They keep deciding that the canon that they've created, they don't even have to abide by. Oh, let's destroy it a second time. Okay. We've just resolved Donna's story, and it's a wonderful pathos laden moment because she's not going to be allowed to remember the experiences that made her grow as a person. And then they immediately threw it away for the sake of some virtue signaling in a single episode. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't undo a powerful moment for something
And,
like
and,
that.
and Christian, in the great education of Brendan here, from my friend in the media, what they were saying to me is that moments like the Star Beast, certain moments when the press kick off about pronouns and the fans go mad about this, that, and the other, the media executives, because they don't watch Doctor Who, they are perplexed. Isn't this what you want? Isn't this what Doctor Who's always been? They just don't know why we're getting our knickers in a twist about it, because they have no template or default position on Doctor Who. Our default, so my default is something like Genesis of the Daleks, or somebody might say Talons of Wen Cheyenne, or somebody might say Tomb of the Cybermen, somebody might say The Visitation. You know our default Doctor Who, the one we said we'd always show a friend to introduce them to Doctor Who. Yeah, that one. The default for BBC Executive is what? Because they don't watch it. So they thought the Star Beast just seemed to look all right. They don't know why we're kicking off. They thought the Space Babies was all right. They don't know why we're kicking off. And yet the Disney knew, because obviously their data, their minute by minute data in their streaming platform was saying people are tanking after 10 minutes. They're leaving. It, Anyway, I'll be up to date on what people are saying. Nicola, good to see you. Please, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. We're busting a gut. You'll see us most days. It's a believing I've got no life. So Nicola, Doctor Who's problem isn't returning characters or canon. It's agenda-driven bad writing. I know I sometimes make it sound absolutist. It's the way I used to teach. I used to be a teacher. No,
I had no idea.
I have to say the source said that a lot. I never knew you were a teacher, but but Nicola, I know it's a bit of everything, isn't it? I agree. It's a clearer way of me talking. John, I think you guys are making great points that anyone can agree with. I do wonder if the show simply will have the money to hire more than half a dozen regular actors for a season for such arcs. Well, the money, I still think there is an appetite. I am sure there's an appetite. I just think you need to get so many ducks in a row. That's all. I think the problem is more logistics, John, than anything else. I think the money will still find itself there. I think, though, we need it to be a cast iron cert. I think there's no more experimental TV, RTD. There's no more let's take a risk. There's no more fourth walls and little musical items. We need to give them certifiable Doctor Who now. It has to be cast iron certainty that it's going to be a winner. And the money will follow after that. I think I'm in no doubt that there are enough people out there who want this to succeed. It's just, can we get them in the right place and positions of power? John Yulden, you need the Time Lords as an authority above the Doctor to keep him in check. You need fresh monsters and force to fight, and then bring in the classics. Me and John have this debate. He hears me say hard reboot, and then he kicks me in and says, well, he actually gunges me in sauce. And then he says, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Well, he's right. This is what I mean with Nicola as well. I do absolute. It is mostly a hard reboot, I think, that would work. But you can still mention the Time Lords. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Should we just not visit Gallifrey for a few years, say a decade or something? Um,
I
now,
actually I actually like the idea of visiting Gallifrey and getting to know the culture. And a large part of the reason I'm in favor of kind of creating a character and a culture to go with that world is because it creates a template from which the Doctor was extracted in the first place, which means if there are certain stories that are going to be told or certain interpretations people want the Doctor to process through, it still has to be consonant with that known world, that known universe. And it is nice to have an authority that has some jeopardy, some control over the Doctor, because it adds texture to his character. It's not that you have to constantly revisit it once it's established, but the audience has to know that it's there.
and we've got to understand, right, Spent straight away, I'll mention this because they're 10 minutes behind. They're in a time eddy. Brendan, you mentioned Christopher H. Bidmead. We don't want his cold version of the series back. He was awful. Right, okay. Sometimes I mention examples to make a point. It doesn't mean I'm selling them as the template. when I say Christopher H. Bidmead, to every Doctor Who fan, you know I'm saying it goes a bit more sci-fi, if you know what I mean. Now, that version you might think was too cold. I have to say, season 18 is not my favourite of all time, but John Daly will now kick me in for saying that. But on another score, you also get my other example was Jerry Davis, Kit Pedler, when they wanted to bring more science to Doctor Who. So I was trying to cover bases, but I think your point's fine. It I actually stopped. I mean, yeah. It wasn't my favorite period, but at least I respected what they were trying to do in some respects. It was a bit cold, I have to say. Yeah, I know it got a bit. Um, Mark Morris, it's not difficult, guys. New Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, it's all doing bad because it's all agenda driven. We're sick of it. Yeah. John, isn't the odd thing that any other series RTD will do, he'll immediately line up more than half a dozen actors and give them story arcs, interesting ones. It is Doctor Who that is Doctor Who RTD's anomaly. Anomaly. I can't speak tonight.
Anomaly? Oh,
It
okay.
might be anomaly. Yeah, I can't say it tonight. Classic. I'm in the right way. I'm tongue tied. How dare you? So, yes. Gareth Morgan, who's been with us all the time. That's why they call it TV programming. It is trying to tell us how to think and feel for society. Talking to Betsy there. I know I have to say, the thread, you're on fire as usual, and you're saying some great stuff. Peter
Well,
Harrington.
they're making some good point. When RTD was doing his dramas apparently are very well received and are very well written. That shows where his interests are because he's willing to apply the energy and the effort to make those properties successful and meaningful. And yet he's willing to give throwaway efforts to a property like Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think it's called assumption and hubris and a bit of complacency thrown in. Paul Thomas Ashworth, great supporter of the programme. Good to see you. I know it's a late hour. Sorry. I was away at the weekend with so this is the best I can do. But pair character punch in the air with fist and bump written on his knuckles. I'm gonna have to try and find a puppet for you. Here we go. Somebody said we should market them.
Okay, now I'm trying to think. We keep talking about a sort. I keep wanting to give the source a moniker. He's the sorcerer. The
Yeah.
sorcerer.
Well, it means I'm the keeper of Traken. I am the source manipulator, and I wish I was. I'm not the source manipulator. You make it sound like I'm more powerful than the source. Not quite. Not quite. um, so we've got that logical leaps. I think having Gallifrey in the first scene of a reboot would be powerful to fans as it disconnects immediately from what's happened so far. The point I wanted to make on all this regressive storytelling, folks, is while some of us fans love it, and I'm not, I don't mind a bit of Gallifrey and all the rest of it, but I'm trying to be really killer objective. And I'm a funny one for that. I can almost go against my own instincts because I can see what the other side are thinking. And the research is that while we might like some of this, can you sort flux out? Can you get rid of the timeless child? Can you do a plot that deals with the fugitive doctor? Can you do this? Can you do that? There's other people who are going, as soon as you do all this canon stuff, I'm out. And you only have to look at the Empire of Death. You only have to look at the last episode, The Reality War, and think, how many minutes were we saying the Time Lords are barren, are sterile? This is the Rani. She's my greatest foe with this, that, and the other. And Mel goes, I faced her before. Oh, for God's sake, get on with it. Kick him in. It Canon is Japanese, not weeds. There's my analogy of the night. I'm sorry, it's suffocating the program. We as fans say it's our lifeblood, and I saw somebody in the thread saying that. I get that. I get that. But equally, for every bit that gives us a little bit of kind of essence of kind of excitement, let's not kill it. Let's not kill the thing. Web of Fear, says Pikehead, was the first Doctor Who story I watched. Oh, what a start. Scared me to death. As I live in London, I kept thinking the Yetis were coming up the tube tunnel every time I went on the underground. Mine was the Sea Devils, and obviously I live near the sea, and I thought equally, Pikehead, I was worried sick. And I'm going to do my Sea Devils one as soon as I can. I keep getting delayed by doing all these. Anthony Parkinson, RTD and Bad Wolf cannot be involved in any continuation. Yeah, I agree. Just
Yeah.
that's it. I think we need that's a kind of hard reboot to me. New writers, new teams going forward. My Doctor Who twin, Peter, the Doctor Who has become an almighty being now. Yeah, Space Jesus. End of. Let's make him, he can fall off a pylon sometimes. He can get his legs caught in some Spectrox nest. Come on, let's get back to that. Not never mind his floating through air because we've all texted his number like he's some sort of glorified children in need moment.
Well, I thought he was Tinkerbell. He's got that glowing gold fairy dust.
Oh, I know. It's just mad. It's just mad. Oh, it does my head in. So basically, when we're talking about uh, narrative and structural issues. I've mentioned in one episodes, then New Who as a formula is just killer. The formula's acting as knotweed. And here's what RTD said in that most recent interview when he said, Doctor now, it's full of imagination, is Doctor Who. Well, so it bloody should be. The imagination to do Toymaker again, Rani again, Sutek again, Omega again. Yeah, that sort of imagination. You're not using much. It's just fun, good heart, and it can make you cry. This is the bit that gets me, Christian. Doctor Who wasn't a program that made me cry. It didn't give me nightmares. It just thrilled me. And I think that is the true word. It just thrilled me and excited me. None of this, I didn't sit there going, oh, look. Even when the doctors changed, the only time I had a bit of a cry, but it was a forced one. You know, when you try and force yourself to be dramatic, maybe it's just me. But when I was a kid, it was Logopolis. And I knew it was a big moment in my childhood. And it was sad, and it was deliberately stylistically sad, wasn't it? But I kind of I kind of forced the crying about Logopolis to conflate with my granddad dying that year. There was something else going on. But my point is I didn't really cry over Doctor Who. I was thrilled by it and excited by it. And that's my point. And I think he's over egging it again here. It's not an emotional fest. It's an excitement fest. It's a thrill fest.
I think you've nailed it. It's excitement, it's thrilling. I do like poignant moments, but poignant moments are supposed to be rare. You might get a poignant moment once in 3 years. And because it happened one time with a character that was beloved, the audience responds and they respond well. And then you move on. You're back to the thrilling storytelling again. And you're not likely to have another one of those moments for another 3 or 5 years. It doesn't mean anything if the doctor is crying every single episode. Have we seen that recently?
No, it's a bit like me mentioning I was a teacher. It's rare. Sorry. Do you know what? We could be on almost one of those terrible streams that it's like, what was your when was your first time? Oh, no, we don't do that. We say when was your first Doctor Who? So John is saying my first was Deadly Assassin. Now, what that is a launch pad or what? I hope you were old enough to really realize it. You can be too young, can't you? Ironically, Deadly Assassin took a chainsaw to Doctor Who continuity worse than Timeless Child. Both that is an ironic point, John. I
Mm-hmm.
think this is where we get out of our mess of 1 minute we don't like canon. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like canon, you know my point. But
Yeah.
I don't want to be obsessed about it. But Robert Holmes, quality writer, knew his Doctor Who, had written a lot of episodes of TV, maybe even more than RTD, to be quite honest. Um, but basically, Robert Holmes executed a top notch, stellar story, which did change canon. But by God, you allowed it because it was stellar. And
Mm-hmm.
I still adore that story. and I still miss that master. That master thrilled me. That master really creeped me out. And I still get that vibe when I watch it now. I, you know, break canon, go for it. With a story like that, you're allowed. That's how I feel about that. So we are as inconsistent as every human is. Betsy's first was Robot. Um, and she wanted a Sarah Jane Smith doll for Christmas. No, yeah, I know. Sorry, yes, I know. And an Action Man tank. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved it. Tom Baker really sold it to me straight away because I was missing John Pertwee for 5 minutes.
Oh, well, my first was Spearhead from Space, but I'm a dinosaur. What can I say?
So you see, here we've got his lack of understanding of Doctor Who. I think he's selling it as the new Who formula, right? So let's get to it then, everybody. This is where we start to say, right, how do we pitch it? How do we make new Doctor Who sellable to the cynical audience who've turned away? How do we sell it to BBC executives who don't know what the hell we're talking about? Difficult. I mean, that's difficult. So, I'm going to shoot these through, folks, and there's plenty of. They're generally enough for some of you to go, right, can I just fill in some gaps, Brendan? By the way, come on, let's get this together because some of our ideas we might be able to push and promote a bit further because people are watching us. That's quite clear. And it's important that we actually not have the same voice. I think it's allowed that we're allowed to kind of whole kind of, universal kind of audience here, but that we actually say what would work. Okay, so Christian, refocus on universal themes and storytelling because I really feel as though we've gone parochial.
Oh, yeah. I'd say that that is a big critical element. If it's a universal theme, it's something that everyone's going to be able to relate to. It's something that they've seen, it's something that they've experienced. Um, if you're trying to do something that's didactic, we're going to say that racism is bad. We're going to say that this political leader is evil. That's didactic. That's not addressing a universal experience that the audience can relate to, and that will move the story forward.
You see, I was looking up where people have gone on this topic. That's why I'm looking at my other screen. And they are referring to New Who. So please, you're going to have to help me in the thread to bounce back a bit here. Imagine we're talking to the BBC executive who's bored rigid. They want to come up with something new, and it's our Doctor Who talk again. We might say something like Doctor Who could still make experimental, exciting storylines with adventure, wonder, and a human connection like Blink, like the girl in the fireplace. Which I have to say, I did like the emotion in the girl in the fireplace. I was actually quite sad when he realized she died. That was a moment. That's when a bit of New Who did work. Bit of history. I know it was timey-wimey, that tedious concept there, but it kind of worked as a one-off. The emotion, Christian, in Vincent and the Doctor.
Oh, love that. That worked, and you were able to play with both history as well as the pathos of Vincent Van Gogh. It's not something that was thrown away. It wasn't cavalier. It wasn't being didactic, and yet it fit narratively within a story that sold itself well. It's possible to do a universal theme or story that the audience will respond to and remember.
And Squinty Mint. This is why I love. We've developed a lovely team of people here, and for everything I say, people will give me a nuance or a check and pull back Brit or a condition, and that's the point. I will shoot the breeze here, having thought things through, but equally I'll go, oh yeah, with the exception of. So Squinty Mint says the show's charm is the contrast between the universal and parochial. Because as usual, Brendan was talking in absolutes past midnight. But but I get you. So you get the android invasion. Obviously, season 13 is coming out. Android invasion seemed quite parochial. We're in a little village. I know it was a temple, but even Terror of the Zygons, we're in a little village in one little part of Scotland, and it didn't go universal. It felt a bit more national when we had to fly to London for an energy conference. So using our season 13 template, which we're all dying to get, aren't we? It had an element of the parochial, which was lovely. One oil rig has been knocked down and all the rest of it. The universal less so. I think I'm just bored to a degree with the parochial politics element. And I'm bored with the universal kind of Armageddon flux.
Well, I guess if you're talking about something that's what I call a perennial existential crisis, you can only have so many existential crises before people are bored with it, because the only thing you can do is make the next existential crisis bigger.
Yeah.
So what do? This is science fiction. He can go anywhere in the universe, anywhere in time and space, and he spends 95% of New Who time on Earth. He needs to leave the Earth. You can visit Earth once in a given season, let's say, long enough to pick up a companion, maybe long enough to bring the companion back. But you need to keep him on other worlds where you can create analogs of various issues that we're still dealing with here. But it's a different culture, it's a different world, and the narrative can't be didactic. I think that would help.
And this will help as well.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
Yeah, a bit of that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is that parochial? Who cares? So yes. So the universal storytelling thing, I've listed a few examples there, but much tighter scripts, much cleverer stories. Like I said, Blink was a clever idea. You can't keep trying to reinvent Blink, but try and do something else. The fact that if there were universal themes like somebody seeking revenge, somebody out of, like if you think of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, some of the old classics are there, aren't there? Which is basically, I have a concept. Nobody lets me do the concept because of the laws of the country. So I'm going to break the laws because of my ego or my ambition to be famous. And so you get yourself into a mess of stealing bodies and all the rest of it, and you get there. I think it's that universal thing. We all understand ambition, we all understand jealousy, we all understand revenge, we all understand bitterness, we all understand love. Those are the universal themes I think we should tap into more, but not in that kind of clunky way of saying, right, she's a foundling and by the end of the series she's going to find her mammy. No, that's a soap opera. Get that on that one. No, you can have those concepts of it put in Doctor Who in a different way. The Doctor doesn't get bogged down in them. Other people are hit by those universal themes, and the Doctor resolves the issue. It just needs to be done better. Zach Witten, I think Brendan has a colour version of A Long Lost Power of the Daleks. I know that. Done via the Hoopets. Spence, when a series is in trouble with no new ideas when it raids its back catalogue constantly, just like the 80s did. Spot on, Spence, spot on. That is the issue. Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me. Yeah, Doctor, I said Doctor. Just tell good stories with characters people love or can love without beating them all over the head with a message and being good science fiction. Yeah, stick us on a planet, some bomb's gone off, they're suffering from some plague, some colony's gone wrong. Do you know what? Can we have something like that? I don't care if it's old fashioned. Can we just get back to that, will you? Please, honestly. Humans.
But Brendan, if we get back to that, that might deprive the current BBC of being able to push an agenda. We can't allow for that. We've got to make sure there's room to dictate our policies and try and indoctrinate the next generation of young people.
I know. And we are one of the most reasonable threads. Paul, I like the well in 73 yards. That's the direction it should go. Um, Obviously, we all have differences of opinion. 73 yards was good while it was stuck in a Welsh village, like Android Invasion.
Yeah.
The snag was when it moved the locale and it went political and years. That was the problem. If he stuck to the kind of Welsh folklore type thing, it might have landed. The well, we both reviewed that on Whonight, didn't we? And
Yeah.
the well had a nice vibe to it,
Hmm.
but I think it suffered again from the doctor not really being the agent.
Exactly.
He didn't have agency, did he? In fact,
No.
it was a female again. It was very like Alien. We said it was like Alien.
Well,
She
you
was the
have
one
to
who
ask
saved.
yourself how often during that run did this iteration of the Doctor had agency, and comparatively
Yeah, and of course, it was always some I get it now and again that a human gets in the way. We saw that actually with Ark in Space when somebody pushed in fact, he thumped Tom Baker's doctor out. When we did Ark in Space's review, he thumps the doctor, and then the doctor is saved because the doctor said, "No, I will save." But you had the doctor really trying to save everybody, and he might have been in the fire, in the rocket fumes. The issue was in that case a human decided to do something, but in too many cases recently it's been too much of, oh, a human does this, a human does this. Look, remember the Jodie Whittaker doctor where she said, oh, I better hang around and save the world, and then somebody said, I'll do it. She said, all right then. It's like, it's not heroic, that, running like a coward. Nicola, how about a retcon? The Gatwa universe was a trap by the Toymaker to turn the Doctor bad. The inevitable reversal of the bi-generation ensues, and a new Doctor walks away with new life and no baggage. A lot of my panelists are actually hoping that would happen, Nicola. They were praying that there was a two-series arc, and there was some amazing end with the bi-generation kind of sealing back to the David Tennant one, and we'd move on. Oops, it ended up being Billy Piper. So something went wrong. Maybe we all had a better idea than the man in charge. So we've got that idea of better storytelling, universal themes. Um, what about this then? Authentic and meaningful representation. Because I think the suspicion from some people is we're starting from the wrong place. For example, we're thinking, I must have Jinx Monsoon in it. So I'll build a character around her, and then I'll build a story around her, and it's ta-da! Well, hold on a minute. Let's just get the story right first. Authentic and meaningful representation. Everybody said it, we'll say it again. Rose Noble, for good or bad, didn't have anything to do except that bloody stupid line, female presenting Time Lord, blah, 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 and the pronoun nonsense. And any doctor worth his salt would have said, I'm trying to save the universe, love. Shut up. That's a very parochial, non event issue. Once you've grown up, you'll realise that pronouns are not the worst thing in the world. Let me get on with my job. The Tom Baker doctor would have really kicked off.
Oh yeah, it's token representation. If the representation is not actually germane to the story unfolding, then rethink how you're choosing to cast characters. Choose how you're choosing, change how you're choosing to interpret them or introduce them to the story.
And for one person saying they love the well and 73 yards, you then get this. But doesn't this tell you the point, Christian? We have to talk with one voice to the BBC because they are confused enough. So can you imagine if one person says the well is the future of Doctor Who, and on another day another fan says the well was bloody dire? the BBC executive goes, "Oh God, I might just make a brand new series about some harbour master." You know what I mean? It's like that's our problem. That is a big problem. We can't seem to agree as a majority of what makes good Doctor Who.
I almost think what you have to do is survey, say, your followers on the sense sphere and get their take and say, okay, 80% of the people feel X. This is what they feel, this is what they want. Now, it doesn't mean that other opinions don't exist. What you're trying to do is express the knowledge that 80% or 90% feel X. And this is what the BBC needs to understand about what they want to see.
Yeah. Now, I thought it was. Yeah, I bet you thought when you saw that title, everybody, when I said authentic and meaningful representation, I could have had an easy one and gone for the lazy stuff that we've done enough now. We'll mention Jinx and more, Rose Noble more. But actually, my main point is about some of the actual characters in Doctor Who now. So here's one, Joy. These aren't real people. They were badly written. I'm sorry, Stephen Moffat. I think you should be better than that. She was weird. She was kooky, talking to a fly. The last time I saw a character talking to the fly, I was reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, honestly, can you write me a real, authentic person who represents a woman in her early 30s? Can we do that instead? Now, you might argue that in Joy to the World, Anita was a little bit more normal, and she was. But what was her role in it? Oh, sorry. Her role was to have a pulse and then to come back in our finale to draw a door like Kenny Everett used to draw. He used to spray paint and then they came alive. Sorry, that's again for the British people. But basically, it just give me a real character. For example, forget Joy to the World. I say Kinder, Todd, Neris Hughes' character. To me, the way she was acted, the way she delivered the lines, and just the way she embodied that role, she felt like a real scientist to me who
Yeah.
cared for the Kinder and was a bit funny about the military and what was going on. And that character did resonate with me at the time. It was a powerful one. I wanted her in the TARDIS. So basically, can we have real characters? Then the program would come alive because suddenly it's not like silly people, space babies, Joy. I mean, you think, Jinx Monsoon playing a hyper. Can we have real people, real authenticity? Chris Eccleston's Ninth Doctor, although he was the Doctor, he had grit and authenticity. He seemed very alpha male, very Mancunian, and it felt like, yeah, every place has got a north. Get with it. That had an authenticity to it. Shooty
Well,
joking on about, do you want a cheese and ham sandwich? No. Crying all
I,
the time? No. Sorry, Christian, come
I
on.
tell you what, I'm looking at a character like, say, Adam, who basically disappointed the Doctor egregiously and ends up off the TARDIS as a consequence. And I thought the character, for all that the character was only there for what, 2 episodes,
Yeah.
was well written and served a meaningful function in the relationships of the characters and in the plot of the story. It worked. Why can't we get that kind of characterization now, even for the guest shots? Everything's a cipher. He's very good at crafting non-player characters, NPCs, characters that really have no function other than to plaster a label on top
We,
of.
we, we've
Say, look, we've
started
got this.
we've started creating caricatures. We've started creating comic strip characters. We've started doing stereotypes. They are telling us and preaching to us about progressive writing and progressive politics. You stop patronizing us with caricatures that don't have 3 dimensions to them. Away. I mean, honestly, I find it shocking. Shocking. And I'm sorry, we Doctor Who fans expect better than that now. I'm sorry, in 2025, you give me real decent characters from the Doctor, the Companion onwards. Don't make Ruby Sunday a one-trick pony, obsessed about family and all the rest of it. I mean, she became better, actually, I have to say. The Belinda character, you destroyed her. One minute she's a nurse, and the next minute she's yapping on about her shift, and the next minute she's going Poppy, 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 and you're thinking, oh God, um, is that it? What one issue, one concept? I mean, no, no. So I actually think these writers now are just doing dot to dot writing, rushed writing, simplistic writing, immature writing. And I'm sorry, it's below you and it's below the budget you're getting, and it's not what actually Disney and the BBC deserve, and it's certainly not what we deserve. And so when I actually said, if you really want to bring back the program, we've got to get this right. We've got to bed it in reality, and we've got to bed it in realistic characters. Now, if I'm saying that, folks, what's your best example, would you say? Because I know we're all good at saying, tell the BBC to make more Genesis or make more Tomb of the Cybermen. What about saying, what type of authentic characters? Come on, name me a few, everybody. Which types of characters do you think would sell a future version of Doctor Who to the BBC executives? Have you got any in mind, Christian?
Well, if you're creating, say, a companion for the Doctor, maybe it's someone who's hungry to see more than the world that they are a part of. They want to go on the trip, but over the course of the process, they've seen enough, they've learned enough, they're ready to go back with what they've learned just from experience. You've got the as a guest shot, the antagonist who the Doctor is stuck with, but has to work with in order to get out of a crisis situation. And the question at the end is, will there be a switch, a betrayal, or will they get over the hump and work together to get out of that crisis situation? So, whether you're talking about a companion coming in who fits a particular paradigm, or you're talking about an antagonist he has to interact with, or just support characters that function meaningfully to move the plot and the characters that you do have along, that's good too. Perhaps you've got someone who's, interestingly enough, gone on the ride willingly with the Doctor as a companion, but interestingly enough, as a twist over the course of a few years, there's someone trying to follow and is basically one step behind because they're not interested in the Doctor. They're interested in getting the companion back to their home world for some reason. And so you've got both motivation for a potential adversary as well as the motivation for the companion. But they all have to have agency and they all have to service the plots.
And may I say to everybody, this is all about pitching to the BBC, who don't understand what Doctor Who is, and neither are they interested. The other issue is we're talking about selling to the BBC and to the new audiences out there. This is the next problem. You've got to be honest here. For every time I open my gob, I'll get people trolling and people saying, how dare you? This is the best Doctor ever, and all the rest. You know, it's all about the representation thing. So basically, we've got to be honest that when we're pitching this new concept for Doctor Who, and you already know what I want, there are other fans out there, and they do exist, who want that inclusivity to be represented, and that symbolic representation still to continue. How do we, square the circle there? Because while we're saying, can we pivot that way, there are still a number of people with stakes in Doctor Who are saying Doctor Who should represent us and should represent this and should still show that. And so, of course, are we able to please both parties?
I'm afraid you're not going to be able to. If you've got an audience of 20,000 people who are very vocal, there's only 20,000 of them, but they're very vocal. They make a lot of noise. And they expect every episode to be kind of reflective of Rogue, for example, or Devil's Court, for example. We know that that's not going to work. What you're going to have to do is go to the BBC with the knowledge that although these are a very loud splinter group of viewers, you cannot craft the show to satisfy them alone. You have to satisfy the largest block of potential devoted fans and potential new viewers in order to make the show go forward. And that means you have to go back to what worked previously. If you want to include messaging, well, this is science fiction. Science fiction is full of extended allegories that address certain points. If you're worried about casting, okay, you can cast a certain person by gender or by orientation or by race to play a particular role, but it has to be significant to the story and significant to the plot. And the nature of their existence can't be entirely predicated on that identity and nothing else.
And may I say to everybody, one of the things I would make clear in my pitch is whether you have a companion who hits ticks a box or whatever, the Doctor is above it. The Doctor is not part of the DEI inclusivity mess. The Doctor is above it. And if anybody is casting in the future, let's keep it an asexual male. And I'm sorry, but we don't dabble with that anything else anymore. If you want a box tick, you've got your companions and your cast per week. And that's where you may be able to do it. But the Doctor's got to be above that. The Doctor is a universal character, and leave all that representation nonsense alone.
Exactly.
That's one thing I would stipulate, for good or bad. What I don't know what people think of that. I'm sure they'll tell me straight away because I talk in absolutes. I'm a little devil. So we've made that clear. What about this? We need to balance high production values with maintaining a British identity for the show.
Agreed. The show was successful in this classic run because it was unabashedly, unapologetically British. It was a British show. It had those characteristics. Trying to make it universal, oh, we're going to make it American. We're going to make it global. Doesn't work. The charm of the show was in the British identity that it reflected, and it needs to return to that.
So there you go, everybody. That's one version I'm saying there. What I've noted on my other screen, because I do make notes. I don't just waffle on, of course. I hope it doesn't sound like I waffle on. Yeah, you can see the high production values actually under the Chris Chibnall era. Whether we like the style or not, there were high production values going on. Every week when we tried to review season 1 and season 2, I just thought, God, look at the set, look at that, look at this, look at that. I feel sorry for the people behind the scenes because they're not being backed up by a decent story. In essence, that was going on there. So the production values are there. We can lose a bit of that because I thought there was splundering money on too many cast. For example, why do we have all those people in unit who hang around just dealing with shoplifting in Catford? Why? Why did you have 2 Rani when you could have had 1 just do more work? You do want that British sensibility and the humour, the settings and the cultural references. We need to avoid an over-reliance on special effects, as cautioned by Peter Davison, and invest in writers who can deliver innovative stories within a budget constraint. So, isn't it funny that the 2 new writers we got this year in season 2, one went ganbusters on bloody Interstellar Song Contest and, wrecking the budget of special effects, and actually did it really have any bloody impact? And then the other one, Anaya Elams, where it cost a bomb to set up this whole hocus pocus Disney version of Nigeria that doesn't exist in reality. And then on top of that, we had all those effects of a barber's shop on a spider's back, but there was no payoff. So basically, we could have saved an awful lot of money because I don't think the bloody story's delivered.
Exactly. What they did is they relied on the effects to provide spectacle and thought that the spectacle would sell the story, not the story itself. Not a good way to go.
Yeah. We've got Claude Simeon here. British universalism should extend to accepting Scottish and Irish doctors. Scottish doctors, there's bloody loads of them. Speaking as an Asian American. Yes. That we've got loads. We've had McCoy, who's Capaldi, Tennant. There's plenty going on there. So you know what I'm saying about that. And look, come on, sell it, sell it, sell it. I think if we could just, because there is that division between those of us who know you can make a horror fan rock with small sets, but a brilliant story, and you direct it and you execute it for atmosphere. That's what you need. And that was a small cast. I mean, the other issue, we talked about how many people do you need? I mean, was it 5 or 6 people? And we killed them all. Hooray! And we had a rubbishy type Rutan. It didn't matter. What a story that was. The best moments in horror fan rock regarding it worked regarding the monster was actually when they didn't have to show the monster, but it was under the sea, and we had that lovely sound effect, and it was spying on them. Knowing the doctor's getting spied on and they're surrounded, your imagination runs riot. That's Doctor Who, and imagination is cheap. In fact, it's free. Hello,
Exactly.
you don't. And you only fire an imagination with half decent sets. That's all, half decent sets and lighting, but brilliant dialogue. So when we reviewed Dark in Space a week ago, all that dialogue I remember as a kid when it talked about it's got in and it's digesting them from the inside, and oh my god, your brain is going whoa, and it's taking off. Um, when you saw in Genesis of the Daleks and it was the dialogue, Davros was doing nout. He was sat there tapping his finger, and Nida was going, "What you up to?" And he said, "I'm thinking." And then he said, "I'm waiting." And when you got this idea that he is quite smug and kind of confident about his position, the dialogue's doing it, and you're going, why? And your imagination's going, why is he not scared? Why is he not running? Well, because he's in a life support machine. But all that sort of stuff. That sort of thing is what works. You don't need all this kind of bone monsters and flying Rani like some bloody huff and puff witch. I mean, God, do me a favour. So, Gareth Morgan, RTD's Doctor Who is British to the core. It is still garbage. Yeah, okay. I can think of a few Americans who could do a pure classic Doctor Who. It is cosmic saga, but people like this guy won't let them try. Yeah, I know. I'm talking in absolutes, but within that, there's possibilities. I better silence myself for a second and just calm down. There you go. What about engage the fan base? Now, this is toxic or what? I engage the fan base, and sometimes I get bloody whopped for. Right. If we engaging with the BBC Commission and editor, and we're pitching a new program, and we're trying to relate to the audience. Now, I don't think we need to go Ian Levine 80s. I don't think we need to have fan advisors. I don't think we need to do any of that sort of stuff. Do you think there is a way that the BBC and writers going forward should engage the fan base actively? Because I would guess RTD and Stephen Moffat, particularly, and Chibnall will say, we engage the fan base by giving you Sutek. Because that was in the magazine last year. He actually said,
Yeah.
for the old fans, I was engaging with them by giving them Sutek. Well, now we know it wasn't Sutek, but you get their point, yeah?
Well, they're going to have to, number one, when they start, gather data. And gathering data means finding a venue through which they can determine what the largest block of the audience wants to see. Not what a splinter group wants, what the largest block of the group following the show want to see. When they do that, they need to respond in a meaningful way in terms of what they create in the next episode or in the next series. They've actually got to engage. One of the things that we learned from, I hate to say it again, we keep going back to RTD, is that he would shut down any discourse that challenged what he wanted to do, whether it was advice coming from Disney or a genuine compliment with a suggestion coming with a fan on social media. It was immediately dismissed and not heard and not respected. They've actually got to find a venue, whether they actually pay attention to some of the more robust channels on the net, or whether they reach out to a specific channel like this and get a list of letters coming in from a fan base saying, this is what we want, or whether they go through other venues. They do their own polls. They have to reach out in some way to find out what the fans and the general audience would expect to see in the show and what they don't want specifically.
Yeah, well, Peter Harrington felt so engaged with the Sutek with a dog collar. Mr. Squinty Mint, the showrunner can be a fan, but a viewer is a viewer, nothing else. The only requirement is engage in drama, and we have not had that. What about? But I've got them as the fans. Look at that. Oh, God, I'm getting cheeky. And then we'll have them as well. Although I didn't like them, but God, it takes me back to a different era, you know. And you just enjoy the picture for a second, everybody. While we talk about Doctor Who, Pandorica wasn't my favorite finale. It wasn't. It wasn't. The Stonehenge moment I thought was too Space Jesus. You know, they could have zapped him at any point. I hate that. You know, and the Jelly Baby Daleks, of course. But let's move on to adapting to modern viewing habits. Now, this is another tricky one because, as I said earlier, we're not even talking about today, Christine. We're talking about in 5 or 6 years' time when things might have changed again. But what's your best guess?
My best guess is that the shorter series and the serialized narratives is going to be the way to go at that point. Most people are still following some form of the binge model. Now, a streaming service may go ahead and attach one episode a week. And at the end of 8 weeks or the end of 10 weeks, all the episodes are out, and someone who wants to digest it will digest it all in one block. So there's still this impulse to binge watch based on what we've seen through streaming the last decade or so. So what does that mean for this show? You capitalize on that and you go with shorter segments, roughly 30 minutes, world building that extends over what would be, say, 3 or 4 of those 30-minute episodes. That's 4 nights that still can be piled up and compiled as a binge model for those who want to binge it, but can be watched sequentially as it's released for those who prefer that model. Because one of the issues that they talk about younger viewers is that they have shorter attention spans, person by person. Well, if that's the case, then you have to go with that 30-minute model and shorten the length of the episodes that are aired.
I do think 30 minutes. I mean, I've made notes myself on what I think. But first of all, Jamie Tron, because as you know, as soon as I up my gob, people are. Now, Jamie Tron, while we're still on, look, I accept that. We can't always agree. And I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying, in a way, it was fan fiction. Am I allowed to say that? Because you know, to get the Daleks and the Cybermen and the Sontarans and the Weevils and everybody together, all going ooh, and we've made this jail for you. In a way, is that surely fan fiction? It's kind of our dream of having it all together in the same universe. And him standing on the Stonehenge and shouting at them all when there's like 200 UFOs in the sky and one of them could have zapped him or transmatted him or anything. Jamie Trump, please tell me why you like it, just so I understand, because I kind of half get it as a fan fiction thing, but I don't know if I really think that's where we want to go when we're selling it to the general public. who probably go, "Oh, what the God, this is all garbage." Anyway, you know what I mean. So I've asked you the
Well,
question. Um,
that's actually, we've got people that like Pandorica, wish they had landed it better. My feeling was the way it was constructed narratively, it felt contrived. That's the word I'm looking for. It felt artificial. You could have a variety of adversaries uh, working together to corral the doctor, but there would have to be a reason that they did not destroy him outright, that they could not, for a critical function, make it work. So the way it was executed, it just did not feel natural to me.
Now we've got debates here, and this is right. This is where I know we'll never get a uniform opinion, but this shows you the problem when you've got different people pitching to the BBC about Doctor Who's future, and we don't all agree.
Well, but here's Captain Have Fun is saying 30 minutes is too short to tell a story. Remember, you and I are not saying 30 minutes is the story. We're saying that that's a chapter of a 3 or 4 or 5 part story, which is what the original series did. So you're talking about extending that story over multiple installments.
So a few
You're
people yeah, a few people are joining. Logical leaps. 30 minutes for a 3-4 part story would lend itself better to justifying set costs and natural world building. That's where I agree. I think we're
yeah.
going back to that. Everybody, we've just had season 2. You know where you stand on this. It was 8 episodes, as you know. 8 episodes of 45 minutes to an hour. And it's too rushed. Reset button, you know the score. We've said it many, many times. Instead of this obsession, we could have had 16 episodes of 30. And in the 16 episodes of 30, go back to that model that you used to have in the later years with Sylvester McCoy, when in a season you might have 4 stories. 4 stories. And then there's less pressure on. You have to invent a brand new science fiction story every week, which ends up being, I'll do something on AI and it'll be a laugh. It'll be something about a microaggressive boyfriend called Alan. It's like, is that it? Is it just a word pun? Oh, cheers. And I'll do a 2-part finale with the two Rani, so I've got a joke in there. Is that it? Is that it? Instead, you could have had a 4-part story, 1 hour, 40 minutes or so, with cliffhangers, by the way, remember cliffhangers. So, but it means you can have those people in modern audiences who like to binge, as Christian said, but equally those who can then break it down and enjoy the cliffhangers. You get both. Um, that's the thing, and the point you're making, logical leaps. I'll just say my point before we get lost in some really good stuff from the thread. My idea, I've added this to this over time, was release episodes in shorter, bingeable seasons to compete with platforms like Netflix. Okay? Experiment with serialized arcs alongside standalone episodes to cater to streaming audiences while maintaining the show's episodic charm. So there's a flexibility. I think New Who has been too suffocating in one format. That's kind of where I'm going. Of course, if I'm too absolute, I'm just trying to be provocative as well, everybody. There's some great comments going on. Let's get some of them on here. Mr. Squinty Mint, I think it needs longer episodes if you want a complex, rich story that engages a general audience. Right, Squinty Mint, right. I know what you're saying, and this is where the debate gets fun. Right, okay then. I know it was badly executed, the reality war, but let me do the example. That was about an hour long, actually. It was an hour of telly. And that was quite a long time to do a drama. And it was only the second episode, as you know, of a 2-parter. But if you really do think of that 1 hour of drama, when you say I need a longer episode if you want a complex, rich story, within that hour, I added it up in one of my reviews. I think for the first 28 minutes, we were really in static mode, saying, I'm barren, I'm sterile, where's Poppy? Is Poppy real? Where's Poppy gone? It was just people stood around. There was nothing going on. And yet, when we had the old classic format, we had trained writers, experienced writers who knew within 22 minutes you had so many sets, so much movement going on, jeopardy in lots of different places. And actually, in 22 minutes, we can all mention certain classic episodes where you could have had 3 or 4 cliffhangers. It was like when you watch a thriller and you think something's behind the door making a noise and you open it and the cat's there. You know you have the jump one and then eventually you get the deliberate one. So Squinty Mint, I know what you mean in one way, but it's funny how classic Who writers managed to do jump scares, jeopardy, world building. Episode ones normally did the job pretty well and made it establish something, established a problem. Yes, you then led to episode 2 later. So it's a funny one, isn't it, Christine? Because I can see where Squinty Mint's going, but we've had this longer format in a way, and it hasn't worked.
Well, let's say you've got the 8 episode model, and you're saying, okay, Squinty Mint wants each episode to be an hour long. Okay, then what you're going to do is split the season into 2 parts. Each one is 4 hour-long episodes apiece. Now, that would satisfy someone who wants a longer story, but I still go back to the idea that people seem to be migrating to shorter viewing times, which means the 30-minute model seems to relate to that better. And remember, if you pile up those 30 episode installments, one on top of the other, and binge it, guess what? You've got your hour long or 2 hour long or 3 hour long story if that's what you wanted to see. It's
Yeah.
still available.
Whonight. Doctor Who can lower its budget and be more engaging by doing 2 parts, same sets and guest stars or sequels to stories in the same season, like Stargate SG1. Remember, it is about we can have a simplified budget. Do the Nerva Beacon thing. Thank you, Claude Simeon. I must reward you, and I'm sorry, but it's my favourite one. Oh no, actually, I should be fair because I've made loads, you know. Thank you first of all.
Oh, Flux, you washed him.
There you go. New one. So thank you for that. Andor season 2 told a spectacular story over 12 episodes, 3 episode chunks, like movies. Could be like old Who without repeated chases and captures. We all know you could take a little bit of those out. I agree with you. What do you think, Christian?
I think that's not unreasonable. Again, you don't want to repeat certain beats in a particular story if you can avoid it.
So we've got, and this is an interesting one. This is where Doctor Who fans really have skin in the game. It's about format, it's about structure, and what is a modern viewing habit. Now, I've tried to say there's an element of compromise because for every person who binge watches, there's another person who still likes to do it a different way. And as Christian has said, surely we can have a bit of both. The binge watchers will binge, but for those who say, "Hold on, I will get a bit more tomorrow and a bit tomorrow," you've got the cliffhanger, and you've got that kind of allow to think about what's going to happen next. I think we can still have a bit of both. Now, there's an awful lot of people saying, "I'm trying to join in. I'm trying to get them all in here." Paul, they tried a longer story with the Flux. I didn't mind it, but most people I speak again, the Flux idea. I know what you mean. It's like the Sontaran episode, not too bad. There was the Halloween one, I think, that was not too bad. But again, it went into comic strip overall because there were just too many characters. He was actually trying to tell a space opera style story in 6 episodes. It was just too much, and it was too much CGI as well. A lot of the stuff wasn't real, and it needed to pin it down a lot more. So in a way, Paul, Flux isn't my favorite period, of course, but I can
Uh,
see how it could have been better if we
it,
just had less.
it could have been better if it had been, I'm going to say, we're less existential. We talked about the overuse of the existential crisis in New Who, and that was kind of symptomatic of that. Um, so it didn't serve that purpose. And of course, each separate episode kind of was designed to function as an independent element with the overarching theme. So it was less cohesive as a single narrative. So it didn't land well. The concept was interesting, but it didn't land well.
Yeah. Pure historical. You see, the Aussies are getting up now. Well, they're not getting up. Well, yeah. So the Sontaran experiment is the same length as the reality war. If you think of the two-parter. Oh no, sorry. Shut your face, Brendan. Yeah, I get you. 45. Compare them. Just compare them. I know. And when I did the Sontaran experiment review, I think that was my thumbnail title. I said, "This is how it could be done." You're right. Squinty Mint, I love you. You keep coming back. We don't always agree, but you support us and you respect the fact that we all can live in this universe, and we do respect each other. Squinty Mint, it's bad writing though. They're trying to keep the frenetic pace going. The stories need to breathe, and I do agree with you there.
Yes.
This obsession with the David Tennant-esque talking fast, gobbledygook, blah, 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 and spike your hair up like Ken Dodd, and jump about on furniture, and that's the Doctor now. It's the madman in a box nonsense. And what happened to the Doctor who kind of ruminates in the corner, almost Hartnell-esque?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that? Allow the characters and the atmosphere that you've tried desperately to build to breathe. Let's enjoy a moment of almost silence. Let's enjoy a moment when the Doctor's going, I mean, I'm stuck on Genesis of the Daleks, but I'll pick a different moment. Remember the moment when Nyder and Davros were plotting against Garman and they were in that basement, and then they went, hold on, I can hear something in the ventilator shaft. Remember that moment? And it was the dark, and hold on, I can hear something. Bang, bang, bang. And really, we've got darkness, a bit of whispering, a bang, and then, of course, the lights come on and he captures them, ready to torture them. We need some moments like that, and none of this kind of, the Doctor kind of prances out of the ventilator shaft, does a moonwalk, and then does a kind of, song and dance routine saying, I'm going to defeat you in a minute, Mr. Davros. Because it seems as if we've gone down silly road rather than that was bloody scary.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it really was. Davros, the Zygons whispering, the Sontarans whispering, Doctor. You don't need this kind of, I'm going to kill you. You just stop it. Stop it. Give it gravitas. Stop it. Claude Simeon, in olden days, a serialized story couldn't change too much in case you missed an episode. Claude Simeon, that was why New Who was invented. And I did a stream about, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, where I went into how the world has changed in those 20 years. That actually what made New Who successful was acknowledging that. The trouble is, we've now moved to the concern about people missing an episode is lost now because you've got iPlayer, you've got streamers, and so you'll never miss an episode. So basically, the world's moved on, and actually, our storytelling needs to move on. And that's what you say there in the second part of your statement. So the point is, what made New Who successful in 2005 is not needed now. It's redundant. And RTD has not respected that the TV landscape has moved. And that's shocking. That's a shocking indictment of him, really. So yes, we're talking about modern storytelling. So here's my final question to you all before I go to bed. And no doubt we'll do another stream tomorrow. I don't think we're going to do Who Nights on Sundays normally, but I was in Manchester, so, hello. So everybody, if you had full creative control of Doctor Who, how would you relaunch the show in a way that brought back apathetic fans? Where would you start, everybody? We've done an awful lot of talk, but where would you start? Honestly, I'll ask Christian first, poor soul, while everybody's thinking. So while Christian's talking, try and give us a statement. We're not talking about story arcs. We're not going complicated. Honestly, everybody, give me your best pitch for the first episode. Where do we start? Go on, Christian.
The first episode, I wouldn't worry about a regeneration story. you have your new Doctor. He's cast. He's walking into the adventure, much like Eccleston did in his first entrance. It's a compelling story with the traditional thrills and chills that the show used to be known for. You could engineer the story in such a way that a companion is introduced at the end of it. But I would almost want to ensure that the first story focused exclusively on the dynamic agency of the Doctor to address a serious crisis and resolve it during the course of the story. Now, ideally, this could be something that was stretched out, serialized in my mind, over, say, 4 30-minute segments with the appropriate cliffhangers installed. But the whole function of the story is to remind the audience of the dynamism of the Doctor as we knew the Doctor, and to make the story itself compelling enough to have an audience want to come back and see the next adventure.
So you've bought us time, and thank you for that, because you had to think on your feet there. Well, you are an ex-writer, you know your stuff.
Yeah.
Jamie Tron, I'd take the flux over the last 2 seasons of this. Um, do you know what? Overall, I think am I saying this out loud? I'm actually kind of agreeing with you. Um, I I actually think Chris Chibnall, actually the service RTD2 has done is made you not look as though you're the worst writer about. Actually, he's saved you, but he's not saved the show. While you were talking, Dalek Lives Matters in 3 words said this is how we would launch Doctor Who again: zombies, vampires, caves. There you go. Um, I'd
Gothic
admit
element.
I'd reduce it a bit. You know, we can't have too many things going on at once. No, it's a bit of a Curse of Fenric mixed with Caves of Androzani or something, I suppose. Squinty Mint says get a decent actor. You know the rumours that they had a decent actor and they had to pay him out to get the very decent actor that RTD had picked. That went well.
Oh,
I know. How Paul, start with a gothic horror. Yeah. I would they dare? Would they dare with this TV landscape now of not scaring anybody? But I agree with you. Go gothic horror or go Victorian
mm-hmm.
or stick it in London. And yeah, Jack the Ripper's mentioned. I know Talons did it. Something there is something about Victorian England and Doctor Who that seems to go, but you've got to do it right. You've got to have um the River Thames mist. Um, you've got to have that foghorn noise. You've got to have a bit of Jack the Ripper. You've got to have those dark little streets and cobbles, and I'll even like the East End accent they do then. Oh, please, that would work. Or get as Paul is hinting at, really stick us in a mansion somewhere with a wood. I mean, Pyramids of Mars. You know, come on. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Hasler Scott, again, another supporter of ours, and I thank you for it. I'm an advocate of the Dallas treatment starting at the end of Capaldi. Timeless Child will be ignored. I know Brendan disagrees, but I can defend my point of view. That's the end of you. No, no, yeah. Do you know what I
Well,
say? Do you know what I say to you, Hasler Scott? This is what I think of your idea. No, I'm
exactly.
joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I just
Well, for a long time, I was of the mind that that would be the way to go. But so much has shifted in the last 3 years that I'm not sure that approach is as viable anymore as it used to be.
yeah. So I know Hazard Scott. We it's a big umbrella here, and you know we need the humor, don't we? We have to have the humor. David Harding, who's said hello, he joined us about half an hour ago in Toronto. They're in a different time, Eddie. Um, 6 to 8, 22-minute stories of varying length, more cliffhangers, no dangling plots that unfold over a season. Ditch the sonic screwdriver and the psychic paper. Sometimes you have the Doctor not be able to fully control the TARDIS, give him dementia, a memory loss, if you get my gist.
Yes,
Um,
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Jamie Tron, a big sense of mystery around the Doctor turning up and solving an almost sapphire and steel type scenario. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Squinty Mint, I'd be very sparing with the character of the Doctor in the first episode. Yeah, mystery, mystery. Prioritize the story,
Yeah.
tick, and tease the Doctor appearing, like they did with almost Christmas Invasion, like they
Yeah.
did. I mean,
I remember
he
that.
is. Yeah, Greg Smith, it boils down to good scripts and actors to pull it off. Yeah, that's lamentable lately. Um, Logical leaps. All right, here's the crack. The Doctor is tasked with meddling in events by the Time Lords, like Genesis. Give him a mission, just something different. Well, it's a bit like Christian doing the quest of a mission, a one-off. I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. It works.
it does.
Boomer Doug, good to see you. You see, the Aussies have woken up. So Boomer Doug, start afresh. Lots of mystery fog, covered London streets, Edwardian era. You see, he's getting picky. Victorian era, Edwardian era. What's a few years? No backstory. Don't even call him the Doctor for the first episode. Oh, you're getting risky. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean,
Yep.
Boomer Doug.
Yep.
Um,
Like
David
that.
Hardin, who's still stuck in his time Eddie in Toronto, and I have to say, beautiful part of the world. I adored it when I went last year, and I really want to get back there. And if anyone's not been, go. Toronto Island and Niagara. I've got such happy memories. Yes, it was my honeymoon, but it was lovely. And the Hoopettes made my honeymoon really special. No, I'm a joking. Right, David Hardin. Different types of stories. Ignore everything from the past 8 to 9 years. Oh, that's not easy. And move the show forward. No more navel gazing. No more retcons. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you, David. It's just the problem is the BBC executives haven't watched Doctor Who. They just know slightly what's been going on in the last 10 or 20 years. They
Mm-hmm.
don't look beyond. They think we're waffling. Hasler Scott is he's now buying influence, buying influence to do his Dallas idea. No, lovely thought. But before I come back to it, of course, I need to reward you with whatever else I've got. Have I got anything else? Yes, I do.
Yeah! Woohoo! Woohoo!
Yeah, they've turned to drink now. Super chap. Thank you very much, Hasler Scott. It didn't work in Dallas because people were emotionally invested in that storyline. And no one is invested in Jodie going forward. That is a decent
Yeah.
distinction. You've bailed yourself out. No, not that you were.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. We were all invested, and although Bobby Ewing was a great character, he had been dead, very
Yeah.
dead. And then to see him come out the shower, it's like, oh God, couldn't he have slipped on the soap? Mark Jones, I would have the Time Lords picking up an anomaly. Oh, you little swine! He's done that deliberately. Go on, you say it, Christian. I can't say it tonight.
Oh, I
Anomaly.
would have the Time Lords picking up an anomaly with the Doctor causing a time rip, and Capaldi's regen has been hijacked by the Trickster or Dream Lord. The Doctor then has to repay the favor. Oh boy.
I don't know. I don't know. Hey, here we go. Captain Have Fun. No Sonic. Honestly, the Doctor needs more tools, not less. Captain Have Fun. We're not doing Inspector Gadget in space. No, I don't know. It's got lazy. He's the most unprepared adventurer. Didn't you like it, Captain Have Fun, when, let's go back to the 60s or even the early 70s? He sits in the corner. I'm going to do the Sea Devils for a moment. And he messes with the transistor radio. And he manages to reverse the polarity, and he does this, that, and the other. And he faffs. How many times was the Troughton Doctor faffing with something in the lab? That's what I like.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the distinction is you don't want to have a magic wand. You can have tools, but the tools have to be discovered or engineered and relevant to the story at hand, and it can't be an already existent tool that simply is repurposed to magically accomplish whatever the next activity is.
yeah. There's we're hot to trot in the thread at the moment. Mark Jones repaying the idea means taking on the most dangerous situations. Hasler Scott is still in his Dallas time zone. Hasler Scott, you need to move on. The Ewins are no more. In fact, when I look at South Fork now, it looks quite cheap. Um, remember when
South
South Fork
Park's
looked
not
so
too far from
expensive?
me.
Is it? Well, remember when
Close by.
South Fork used to look so expensive? You
Oh
went,
yeah.
oh my God. Now it looks a little bit, mind you, the sets now, it's so funny, but anyway. So anyway, Captain, have fun. David Haverton's talking to him and not me. I don't know, how dare you. I mean, what the hell's going on? He's talking about the heat in Toronto. Boomer Doug is wanting things controversial. That's controversial. No, I'm okay. Cast a character actor, not a sex symbol. Yeah.
That is controversial. Right now, they just want to cast a sex symbol.
And Peter Venkman's really going for it now. The Doctor has loads of skills, so he doesn't need psychic paper. He can hypnotize people. He can do stuff with their lungs with Sarah Jane Smith and Terror of the Zygons. He can do loads of stuff. I like that mystery version of the Doctor. I like the one where he's mesmerizing, really. He can argue with you. He can debate with you. He can challenge you. He can influence you. And that's just with words and a good brain. Add to that if you give him some time in a science lab, he knocks something up. I mean, come on, get back to that. But not ready-made Vindicator. Not ready-made crap. Let's get back to him having to think on his feet with whatever is in front of him. It's a bit like Ready Steady Cook for scientists.
Yeah.
He's got
Did we
half
ever?
a tomato.
I was about to ask, did we ever figure out where that Vindicator came from? No.
And it looked cheap and
Plot holes.
nasty, actually. And then it ended up being on a clock face. I mean, honestly, it made no bloody sense at all. Captain Have Fun. I lived at an adventure school for a year. We had a backpack of tools, food, and water. He basically backpacks the universe and doesn't take any precautions. Well, that's what I mean. That's more kind of he works on it as he goes. That's kind of what I think we're all on about. So, Daryl Joyce, I've shown that animation going a bit darker. Just God, it's
I
so
just love
delicious.
Daryl Joyce's work. God, I wish they would tap his skills for design.
Oh, I know. Even just for the animations, just to sex it up. So, everybody, we've kind of we peaked early about what the story arc would be. This is the key thing. I think, honestly, Christine and Thread, we do have one more shot at this. And like I said, I have been talking to various people that I obviously call my yeah.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah. So basically, I do think there should be optimism, but it's got to land this time. There's no way the BBC can invest in a short 3-part series or anything and it doesn't stick. This time, no fan fiction, no complicated lore, no Doctor getting too kind of full of exposition, no Doctor stuff with parochial issues on Earth. We really need to get this right. And so basically, we've all been just kind of toying with that, saying what would be the best story arc to go with. And some of you have nailed your colours to the mast and given us a go. This is the tricky bit. We can moan, criticise, we can say RTD's a hack, we can do loads of things, but my God, you've got 1 episode or 2 episodes to sell it. What do we do? Do we take off? I've heard people say, give him a mission from the Time Lords. Is that too much is that too much canon? As people have said, do we kind of keep the mystery and you hardly see him in the first episode? But then where are we based? Would that be Earth?
I'd be tempted not to put it on Earth. It's just that we've spent so much time earthbound the last 20 years. We need to take advantage of being off world.
Yeah, I know. There's so much to think about. So I hope I've been away for a couple of days. I put some videos out. People have been very supportive. The woke one that me and Rachel try and do. And of course, I put my little treat of my video with friendly fire. This one is a nice treat for you all, which is where we all stand at the moment. I'm obviously going to get my act together to do the Sea Devils, do various ones. I might be doing one tomorrow tea time, which will be a news item. So please look out. I know my schedules are all over the place at the moment. That's partly because we're just seeing what's going on out there. And actually, if I find a day or two of not doing a show, I'll be transcribing a lot of my chats with my source, which I need to feed back to everybody. I haven't even got back to that yet. So there's so much stuff. But thank you, everybody. It's been hot to trot. I will beam at any time sometimes. I probably need some sleep now, but I might be doing some news, maybe tea time tomorrow. So thank you, Christian, for giving me your time. We seem to manage wherever we are.
Sorry about the tech problem with my desktop.
Oh, it's all right. And everybody's very understanding. Again, the thread are fantastic. I really feel as though I'm getting to know everybody now. And we have the same
They
type
were
of
sharp.
humor.
Oh my God, you had such a sharp thread.
Brilliant. So hopefully meet you tomorrow if I feel up to it. Anyway, good night, everybody. And really thanks for your support. It is much appreciated. And thank you, Christian. Good night, everyone.